All right, I think we're up.
Mm-hmm.
Says we're live. All right, Matthew Finch, what's up?
Well, not too much, man. How you doing?
Doing pretty good. How are you doing? How's your week since our last big think?
It's been good. One of the things that I thought was interesting about this week was I found this pamphlet uh, by a group that call themselves Control Society. Uh,
Right.
it's uh, it's part of this acronym group that's like, what is it? IEEE. What does that stand
I
for?
triple
Yeah, IEEE. Yep.
Yeah.
I forget exactly what it stands for, but they're one of the big sponsors, but also the NSF. Looks like the International Federation of Automatic Control, and then
Hmm.
Digital Futures seems to be their sponsors.
Yeah.
But it was interesting because it's this little like pamphlet broken up into 8 sections, and the title of it is Control for Societal Scale Challenges: The Roadmap 2023. I
Okay.
mean Roadmap 2030. Roadmap 2030. Um, and basically it's this paper that suggests how to use control theory, which is a kind of like mechanical engineering theory,
Yeah.
like interlaced with machine learning and AI, and how to implement these types of mathematical principles and systems in order to, it's weird saying the word control, but they're talking about how to control
Yeah.
society and aspects of society, but they
That's
don't.
spicy.
Yeah, right. That's
It's
what I'm
a
saying.
bold
Do
thing
they
to
not
do.
know what this sounds like? But
For
they,
me, that sounds like crazy. Like that someone would like just make a pamphlet on how to control society. Like,
yeah, and how to do it at an infrastructure level, how to do it at a weather level, how to do it at
yeah.
like how to do it at a socioeconomic and socio-behavioral level. Like they've got quote unquote solutions, but I've read through a majority of it.
Really?
They don't have specific solutions.
Okay.
It's more so they're bringing up the areas and approaches that they think should be taken by industry leaders, academics, government, and they think like they're basically laying a roadmap out for what they want to accomplish. And the authors of this paper, I forget the exact number, but I think it's fair to say probably like 15 to maybe 30 different
There was
authors
like
have
a
gotten
lot
on
of
it.
people
Yeah.
on that. I briefly looked at it, and there's a lot of people, a lot of industry
Mhm.
people, and that's why I was. And IEEE is a very famous like technology organization that, and the fact that they have this pamphlet for I mean, control and society in the same phrase for me is jarring.
But see,
You know?
that's their little trick. It's listen what it actually says. It says control for societal scale
yeah,
challenges. So they're saying we
yeah,
want we want to solve these mathematical problems at the scale of society.
yeah.
But no, we're not talking about controlling society.
That's like, I mean, so like, what's the and I looked at their intro video a little bit.
Yeah.
So what exactly are they I don't fully understand control theory. Like I have very rudimentary understanding it. Like I'm assuming they're applying the concept of control theory in like autonomous systems, this way of like controlling states in a fairly dynamic system. That's the most I sort of know about it, and they're trying to apply that in that micro of robotics and things like that to essentially how like farming people. That's what it looks like.
I think that's one interpretation, and I think it's a fair interpretation. I'm gonna try to. I don't necessarily agree or disagree.
Hmm.
It's easy for me to joke about this stuff. I'm
Yeah,
gonna try to take. I'm gonna try to take their maybe what their point of view might be,
right.
just to kind of. What I think their goal is that I think they are. So first off, like let's just look at the literal definition of control theory as said by Wikipedia.
Hmm.
What Wikipedia is going to tell us is that control theory is a field of control engineering and applied mathematics that deals with the control of dynamical systems in engineered processes and machines. and that the objective is to develop a model or algorithm governing the application of system inputs to drive the system to a desired state while minimizing any delay, overshoot, or steady state error, and ensuring a level of control stability, often with the aim to achieve a degree of optimality. So essentially, I think what they're coming from is that I think this line of people fundamentally think humans are destroying things. I think
Yeah.
that they're coming from this perspective that we're ruining the climate, we're driving our world into some type of non-natural state where we'll die essentially,
Right.
and that they believe the only way to move forward with the type of things that society does is to essentially move it, control these processes to an optimal and desired state. And I think that they believe that they understand the desired state and that they
Right.
understand these mathematical theories that can drive it to that state in the most optimal way. I think that's where they're coming from. And I
So they're
don't think they're coming from a bad place, but I think they might not be grounded in reality.
That's what I see in a lot of these like control society globally, act globally organizations, is that they're often like they're doing exactly that. They're looking at this chaotic system of people that like ordinary people like you and I, who they kind of think are like dumb, and they want to sort of control the behavior using all this behavioral statistics and all this feedback with big data. They're trying to, which is a chaotic system, which I can see why they're trying to use this control theory here to get this desired state. So it seems like this is like a perfect kind of thesis to a lot of like global organizations. What's that one, that famous one that's
World
like
Economic Forum, I think.
Yeah, World Economic Forum. Like they're really like as soon as I saw the video of the control society people, I was like, oh, that's like their World Economic Forum, but like more nerdy.
Yeah, so I think though, just to reduce it, I think the World Economic Forum is oligarchs and business leaders, and they're kind of seeing things from just an ideological place. They're just kind of like, well, if we could all just do a good thing, what World Economic Forum makes me think of is like the epitome of a think tank. You know what I mean? Like that's like what they're doing. Where I think control society, and if anyone's out there, if they happen to know more about this, I mean, correct us. But what I kind of, from what I read and what I saw, is I think they are academics, and they, in their mind, have a very real world approach. But what I also think they're doing, someone as someone who I love academia. What I love about it is the learning. I love the knowledge sharing. I love the experimental space, the access to resources, and kind of like, I do like institutions and these things when they're run in a good way. But what I think they're doing, in the same way that I probably would, is a lot of these professors have spent a big chunk, if not their majority of their life, like moving in this direction and building up these theories and working on these problems. And they're probably working on them in somewhat of a closed, small scale space with access to opportunities here and there. But their main drive is to teach the ideas and facilitate these younger minds to implement the ideas. And so,
which is all fair and good.
But so I see this as kind of like, and now this might be, I don't know, I kind of see this as them finding purpose in a lot of how they spend time, right? Yeah. Like they've done a lot of this work, and now they're kind of like, oh, I want to do something bigger than myself, bigger than this university. I want to solve the world's problems. Like, is it?
Yeah, the crazy thing with all this, like, and for anyone joining, we're talking about this like control society thing. Maybe we should add a link in the chat to it or something.
Yeah, like, I'll throw the main page and then the document in the chat.
These people have this, like, a ton of top academics have released this pamphlet which is this plan for 2030, which is
Mhm.
like essentially how do we? I mean, I know that I'm sure they would like push back at me a little bit, but they really want to control our chaotic society
Mhm.
and to have ensured outcomes,
Exactly.
top down,
Mhm.
using a lot of these. I'm assuming using a lot of these behavioral metrics we've been getting from big tech for a long time. I mean, I'm just trying to cut to the chase of what it seems like they're trying to do. Like, because how else would you get that data? It has to be from big tech.
Yep.
Um, but what you're saying about academics trying to fulfill their purpose and all that,
Mhm.
I see that. Oh, that's such a big point because that's like destroying society. And they're succeeding in it. You think they're succeeding? What do you think, Matt? Do you think they're succeeding?
I think they have a lot of power. I don't know if the academics have the power. Like, for example, let's think about Jeffrey Hinton. He's a head academic, and he was, he's said to be the godfather of AI. He helped develop recurrent neural nets, and he was one of the first guys to do like kind of sequence modeling, which eventually leads to large language models and transformers.
Yeah.
Google hired that guy long ago, and he was running a lot of their stuff. And he, like, whether it be for marketing or whatever, because he kind of made a show of it in my eyes, but he stepped out of the industry, basically saying like, we got to stop putting these academics in the industry because it's
Yeah.
driving the industry towards this like crazy power.
Wow.
Because the thing is,
Jeffrey Hinton said that.
yeah, that's why he quit
Wow.
Google. He left Google. He literally said
That's why.
he said the multimodal AI training that they're doing, he feels is a detriment to society, and he no longer wants to be associated
Yeah,
with development.
it's like one. It's if anyone has any like engineering discipline, you hate that.
Yeah.
like yeah, by default, all this like I mean, no, I'm not anti multimodal at all. Like in
Mhm.
terms of the concept,
Right.
but at like the scale at which I see them trying to do things, I'm like, that's not how any like user problem gets addressed.
Exactly. Like you don't build a generic system top down. You build it
Yeah,
out through use
100%.
cases. You build you build a minimum viable product with the understanding that you're going to iterate, and the use cases will help you build it out. To build top down suggests conformity. It
So
suggests
yeah. Yeah, real quick, like how do you feel more on this? Because I might even rename this about academics, just because
Mhm.
like we even talked about that before, right? Like with applied and academics.
Right.
Like, how do you think into because right now there's a huge like merging happening with
Yes. Yeah.
academia and engineering and
Uh-huh.
CS and it's AI is kind of the driving force of it. What do you think what do you think about that? What do you think is going to happen? And like, do you think that's going to be like, do you think, because right now, what I'm seeing at the lower level is data scientists don't write great code. And that's
Mhm.
one thing that's socially rupturing some stuff. Like, what
Right.
do you see? That's a low level thing. Like, what do you
Mhm.
see just in general?
Well, okay, so real quick, data scientists that don't write good code, that's going to be irrelevant like pretty
Okay.
soon. Like the way I see general industry incorporating data scientists is you'll have like a head architect who knows like maybe even down to like metal code, like understands how to like write out registers in C++ and
Yeah.
mess with memory, but also has a like very good understanding of how to implement things in Python. And even, with data science, JavaScript isn't as important in data science for the
Yeah.
actual computation. But basically what I see is that they'll build out teams that have head architects, and they basically will build like homegrown, low code solutions so they can have statisticians and scientists come in and drag and drop and type a little thing here, I think about a Jupyter
Yeah.
notebook, but think about it like super maxed out. But I think ultimately academia is cool. I like it a lot. I like exploring
Definitely.
ideas, but I don't think that the scale in which they want to achieve things is relevant, actually,
Mhm.
in my opinion. So yeah, I'm less interested in like an academic being like, let's use the theory of like fluid dynamics to try to control the weather. Like, let's not actually,
Yeah.
like, let's not do that is
Yeah.
what I would say.
In this, you guys should watch their video, because in that link Matt posted, because I watched it a little bit, and they're talking about like weather systems,
Yeah.
and when they're talking about control theory, they're talking about dynamic systems, like having some means of dynamic systems and controlling the state of the output. That's really what it is. I mean, like, I had a very brief overview of it. I'm sure definitely people know more about it than me, but that was at least how they presented it in the video. And they're talking about weather, and I'm like, and they're talking about like they just threw out a ton of stuff. They're like pandemics, like they just threw out they just said the word robotics, and I was like, they're just like, so everything in the world, we're gonna control the state, and I'm just like, let's see. Reed says, in the future, either we become cyborgs and we match with tech, or AGI will get ahead of us and fuck up society. But talking like 100, yeah.
Reed, I'm going to push back a little bit. I agree with you in a way, but World Economic Forum 100% kind of falls in this stuff. But I would say World Economic Forum, they're less academic and more like conceptually and ideologically driven. And I think the difference with this control group is that I think they're primarily academics and industry leaders. So they actually are like touching these ideas. And
which
really,
is worse.
I think when they combine eventually, because the World Economic Forum probably has a lot of money, and they'll probably see this type of group as an implementation tool to further their ideas if they merge. But I just wanted to say this, like, I think we're already cyborgs. We're just like very analog cyborgs. I was thinking about this the other day, and how, like, and maybe this is because I work in tech, so I feel this way, but like, it's like I'm using computers and devices to do a lot of things all the time, to the point where, like, when I don't have a device with me, I'm like physically aware that device is not near me.
Yeah.
I don't know if I rely on it to think. I still think I have a pretty autonomous mind, but the way I interact with society is very much through sending signals through a device, and that device interacts with things, and then I get some type of thing back. So I think we're already cyborgs, but I want to further this really quick. But I think the thing we need to think about AI, and this is why we're thinking about this control theory group, is AI is not a person. AI is not consciousness. AI is not ever going to be that. AI is only going to be a tool that a group of people are using. So I don't think AI is going to fuck us up. I don't think we have to compete with that. We just need to, like, I don't know. It's the same thing with like politics. Like, the government's not a person. It's a group of people doing something. So I think AI is a group of people doing things. But the weird thing is it completely obfuscates who that person is. And it makes you think like it's a thing in itself. It's a deity almost. And that's what I feel people need to step away from. Get away from that idea.
The thing is that's the ideal, but they're going to push for that, for the AGI, and I heard someone talk about this, and this just like blew my mind. It was a comedian. It wasn't like this wasn't a scientific discussion, but really someone was talking about this concept of like having like the insane rise of autism, and a lot of that I think is largely like due to behavioral, cultural, and nutrition based things. But in the behavioral side, there's also, people have this theory that it's linking to device usage and dependency on the digital world and all this. When you're talking about like people and like this cyborg type thing, there is this kind of idea and theory where that's already the cyborg. Like when you have someone that's socially been adjusted to be fully dependent on a digital like interface that puts them into this web, not to get too like crazy or like high-minded about it, but that's like a cyborg kind of. A lot of people think AI will replace low-wage workers.
I think it's because I think it's because deep down we don't want to be low wage workers. We
Yeah.
want to be doing more. So I think we actually aspire. I think that's been part of the autonoma dream since like the 1900s, is that we like have this whole society that's automated, and
Yeah.
we all live inside of like luxury capitalism where it's like
Yeah.
super convenient. But the irony right now is that it turns out linking AI to physical actions on a wide scale for society is much harder. And it's actually a lot easier to create something that just mimics our knowledge workers. So
Yeah.
it's like we actually end up in the reverse situation where knowledge workers are actually threatened and low wage workers actually have a lot more leverage because they're going to be the market where like actual people are working if the like that thing takes off. I don't think it's ever going to truly take off to that degree. I think people will get in the way of that.
You think it won't actually replace low wage?
No, not fully. No, I think,
Really?
yeah. I think the idea of like robots being everywhere, doing like the packing and all this stuff, it's just not going to work because I don't think, okay, it's the same thing with the large language models. Okay, so we have this dream that first they were like search engines redefined. Well, it turns
Right.
out actually no. If anything, it's going to summarize some stuff.
Yeah.
But then we say like, okay, so it's gonna take over writing. It's like, well, we find that not to be true. What ends up happening is you can't control the output, so you get some template that you kind of want from it, but then you still have to do a lot of stuff. So now let's just take those two problems and think of that in a physical context, where it's like, okay, how do you tell that robot to look for this certain product and move it over here? Okay, there's like a way to do that, but the series of problems that are going to happen, it's going to take, I just think it's going to take so long for it to work the way that we think about AI cars. Like they still don't work the way we think they do. Like the marketing of them, it's not real yet. They do impressive stuff, no doubt, but it's not there the way
Which is
that
an
the marketing
actual
does.
use of control theory, not like dealing with driverless. Which so what's interesting with the AI replacing workers and all that, whenever I think of that, well, back to the academia thing, whenever I think of the people working to do things like that, I always find it interesting because it's always this top-down thing where I've only ever seen an effective. You can look at all the great industrialists in America over time. The most effective way to automate has always come from the bottom up. It's always come from the Henry Fords. It's never been good. And Henry Ford was an engineer. He was like he built cars his whole like adult life, and that's where the true automation comes from. That's efficient. That actually adds value. I have never seen like a true automation come from people just in a room that have never either done the jobs or don't know, have never ran the businesses or anything, apply it. And that's one thing about AGI that really like, I'm super skeptical of it, because you can't just, it's such a like engineering nirvana to just throw inputs at a system and be like, you know what, I don't have to know about what you do in your job, but I can solve all your problems with my magic machine. It's like, that's a scam.
That's not real at all. And I want to say a few things because this taps into what's being said in the chat. So we said kiosks are already replacing workers. Okay, with that one, it's like, okay, well, my question is like, did we ever actually need to put someone there and make them take an order? Like, is that something humans like really should be doing, or should we like? So to me, it's like the real issue is that we live under this false bottleneck, and we think that like there's only so many jobs that like aren't service or something, and we have to like go through some gauntlet to get there. And I just think that that's an illusion that a lot of us live under. And so when I see a kiosk, let's say at a fast food joint or in the mall or at the movies, it's kind of like that's probably how it should have been from the get-go, and putting a person there was only a temporary thing in the first place. And another example of that is Henry Ford automation. there was a period of time where a human turned every machine, or better yet, kids were doing it because I don't know if Ford had kids working for him, but kids were definitely.
No, he was one of the people that like got rid of that.
Exactly. But check this out. I promise you, at that time, that was like a controversial thing. And some families were like, how are you going to not let my kids work there? Well, maybe because the kids shouldn't be climbing in those machines.
Yeah.
And we think about in Detroit how the assembly line is now, if you go to a Ford factory now, it's primarily machines building the cars, but there are still like so many operators on the floor operating the machines. And that's what we're going to have. We're going to take these low wage kind of positions. There'll be a mechanism of automation, and then the people who were once the ones doing the work will become the operators. And if people say, oh, but people are firing this or that, then I actually say that I bet you those companies never wanted to have those many workers in the first place. And this was a sacrifice they had to make. And in reality, this should show us that we actually have room for more companies. If we have less people working for these companies, that means we have more people to build companies. That's my take. And maybe that's like a different point of view, but
No, I mean, that's so like sort of like, it's kind of the bullshit jobs like theory with it, where we have this bloat in our system from the bottom. That's also, especially in middle management, because when you have bloat at the bottom, when in your services, you're going to have bloat when it comes to the management of like how to communicate up the channels.
Exactly.
And sort of like automation and AI could be something to address a lot of these things. And then it's interesting that there is a perspective that you're saying that this could be like, which I actually think is going to happen. This is partly why I'm trying to do a lot of content now, is I think that there is going to be this like enterprise push. It's already happening, but it's like, you know,
it's falling on its face, in my opinion.
It is falling on its face, which is partly why I want to at least do it well in my own right and try to like get a community of people that can do it well, because there's so much potential in like creating enterprises right now because of the economic shifts. It's like we're almost in a 2008 type situation right now. And I think so. Yeah. And I think a lot of, we're going to see a lot of parallels. I think it's going to be like, not to be a doomer, but I think it's going to be way worse, like in a couple of years. But I think part of that, if people can start to like develop skills and start to like be able to build enterprises within that time, I think that'll be great. Because like, what happens if right now, like 90% of service jobs become useless? Just like as a hypothetical, it's like, what would be the result? Like, I mean, I'll throw that out to anyone in the chat or you. Like, what do you think would be the result of 90% of service jobs, like the entry level, low wage service jobs became useless?
I think it's the rate of change that really matters. If they say, as of tomorrow, you all lose your job and we're going to automate you out. Hold on, my cat's like,
yeah.
My computer.
Hey, you cat.
Hi to everyone. This is Linus.
Hey, kitty.
He's a cool little dude. I think if they say, if they say tomorrow you all lose your job and we got robots to replace you, then that's messed up. I don't like that. That's bad. But if there's this general understanding that this is the direction society is going to head, because it is, as someone said in the chat, it is cost efficient for, if you don't have to pay a person to do it and you have a reliable automated system that customers want to engage with, which is key, then it's going to be fine. Another good example is the writer's strike with Hollywood. I kind of think they should all shut up personally, because it's like, what did you really think Hollywood was like, we really cherish our writers and we love you guys? And it's like, no, they've been recycling IP since I've been born. Like, it's been the same rehash of things, and they've just been hiring people then to augment the IP in this way. And
100%.
And here's the other thing with these writers. They're all capitalists pretending to be artists. They're like, we deserve more pay. I'm like, why are you entitled for Hollywood to pay you a bunch of money when Hollywood is kind of responsible for a lot of degradation and like, kind of, I think it's pushed a lot of terrible things in our society.
Yeah, it's like culturally destroying society. Exactly. Like, it's, oh, you go get your assured 80K or whatever they get, like writing to like convince kids of like nonsense. But so it looks like Reed said more efficient customer service. Yeah, no complaints, no emotion. A tool that does the job only. Yeah, that's and China already has hotels fully automated from check to into room service. So that's one thing that I actually think right now, I don't know how it's going to happen. I think it's going to happen. This is partly why I want to like push enterprise a lot, is because I think OpenAI and Microsoft and a lot of big tech is coming together to address what's going to happen. Okay, I'm a conspiracy guy. Okay, but like, I think in the next couple of years, you are going to see that hypothetical. Like, I kind of hope I'm wrong, because I think it'll be really bad for people, but I think we're going to see America shift like away from our status a little bit. And I think you're going to see a lot of the service industry just getting decimated, and a lot of it's going to be AI driven. A lot of it's going to,
But to me, to just say that it was just AI is false, because, okay, let's think about McDonald's. My dad worked at McDonald's when he was young, and it was like a respectable gig back then. Like, McDonald's actually had kind of like some merit behind it. It's like, oh, you're a young guy who's putting himself through college, or you're a young guy who's like just trying to get out there, and you're working your job at McDonald's in the summer. That was like a cool thing. But then when they started franchising out and became more of a real estate company, then the quality went down. Then the service went down, because the company lost its true priority, which was initially, the McDonald's brothers, their whole thing was they wanted to efficiently make food for families, and they had no intention to franchise out. The guy, Roy, whatever his last name is, came in, bought the company out from them, and then made it a real estate mogul company, essentially, where it makes most of its money off rent. And then it just like supplies these like food packs for them to like operate with, to like, make the thing. And the food quality goes down, the employee quality goes down, they don't pay as much. And it's like, that's not AI. That's just terrible capitalism.
I see what you're saying.
So terrible capitalists are going to be terrible capitalists regardless what tools they have.
Yeah,
good capitalists will always be good capitalists. So a good capitalist is going to find a way to use AI to optimize their company while bringing the people in, because anyone who's running a company right now knows that it's the people communicating and the breathing individuals that builds the culture, builds the status, creates the reason to believe in the security if it's an open, like if it's an open company. So like, I think all those things are still huge factors in how things get supported and funded.
So do you think, so your general thought with it is that like there's these economic factors with people essentially like undercutting the value of what they do to make gains and superficial gains. And that's been sort of the crux of the system. And I'm assuming, so there's like the theory of like that behavior in our system is why we have so much bloat and why we've had the hyperinflation, because in order to turn your good local burger store chain into a massive nationwide thing, you have to leverage an insane amount of debt. And you have that at Subway, you have that. So this is like every single major US company is getting into crazy amounts of debt in order to like become the multi-billion corporation, multinational corporations that we have. So that is interesting that it's more the economic drivers is kind of like why we're going to get into this. And then AI is just the tool people are using now to deal with it. That's interesting.
And the big thing that they did, and now, okay, conspiracy alert, just so everyone knows, conspiracy alert.
Let's get into it. Conspiracy. I don't
think it was an accident the way that Microsoft funded OpenAI, then immediately challenged Google before they were ready to hit market, forcing them to flop, forcing all of those shares to get pushed, forcing there to be a bunch of credibility for OpenAI. And then OpenAI immediately goes to Congress and says no one else should use AI except for the big companies, because they understood that the second even a small business gets AI, they have an ability to skyrocket their profits. And they're trying to like put a ceiling on everything. Which is what I don't like about the control theory thing. I think they're fundamentally trying to stop growth and control growth. And I think that is like ridiculous. The idea of like controlling growth in that fashion, that is
interesting.
If anyone, another book people should read is The Cybernetic Hypothesis, written in 2001, which legitimately predicted so many things.
I'll put that in the description after.
Yeah. Cybernetic Hypothesis, great. Now it is a pretty like lefty postmodern French like kind of ideologue, but no, it pinpoints and understands the growth of basically what they call an equalized state, which is where everything is controlled in this manner where the enemy of the state is whoever brings the most risk to the state. So the most volatile individuals are the ones you want to shut down because they're going to break the conformity. And right now we're seeing that technological push, whereas before we saw it with media and culture. Prior to that, we saw it through just kind of like abuse and general, like you think of like the 1800s, people just used power to make it happen. And then we moved into like an economic powered society through the late 1920s and up, and they did it through that, and then they did it through the military industrial complex, and now they're just adding AI to it.
Wait, Matt, someone requested a link to that.
Cybernetic hypothesis theory. Yeah. Actually, I can pull up the PDF pretty quick.
Oh, if you can do that quick, that'd be nice.
Yep.
So it looks like America has been too comfortable printing money out of thin air just because the dollar is the world's base. Yeah. 33 trillion in debt is too much. The moment that bubble, it's going to be ugly when that bubble explodes. Like I'm telling you guys, like get your network, like get your community, and start like building enterprise. Start like whatever skills you have, start making use of it. Learn new skills, because and I'm not saying if you're like, I don't know outside of America, but I know in America, people just aren't used to having to depend on their communities, because we're in this pipeline of like, K to 12 to like college. You get your network in college, and then that network disperses into random cities across the nation, and wealth just keeps like wealth doesn't why doesn't Philly have a big tech salary? Yeah, so Philly's the closest city I'm in. So that's one of the reasons why when I was like 18, I moved to New York, because all the tech companies, that the options I had in Philly weren't that great. I think part of the reason why is actually a part of this, what we're talking about. Like New York is just, we're talking about where debt gets consolidated, look at the real estate in New York, look at fashion industry. Every single industry that backs the ecosystem of New York is inflated. That's why like in the population, everything's inflated in New York. The tech salaries in Philly are actually pretty normal to the value it should be. Like you probably should be getting like $70K for a lot of the work you're doing for like those New York City. It is the fintech. There's so many. There's so much in like those New York City, especially after all this remote work is happening right now. Those New York City salaries are getting dispersed.
And that's like actually like the big push for the return to office actually is that these landlords and business owners that own these buildings aren't able to justify like the payment anymore. That is because it's like the rent justifies the salary. You know what I mean? By being like, well, if you live in a world where it's like $4,500 to live in a square foot and have like, some rice every day, then like you need $160,000 just to be poor. You know what I mean? So that is the justification. And San Francisco is the first city that's truly imploded in our modern times. Detroit was the first in my lifetime, but it was artificial and it was more political how that happened than it was with what's going on now. But Real quick, I did throw a link. It's to this website called Scribd. You should be able to download the book in full. If you can't download it, at least you know what it is, and you guys can just do a PDF search. But also, I think if you do like
Tony,
a free 30 days and just add an email in there, I think you can bring it down and then stop the 30-day trial if you guys want.
By the way, Matt, we got Tony in the chat. Tony's awesome. We're definitely going to talk with. Yeah, Tony, this is Matt. Yeah, Matt's great. You guys should definitely talk about AI. You both have a lot to say and a lot of stuff to say about it. Yeah, so with the remote work thing, talk about perfect storms right now with economic shifts and a lot of the automation we're going to see, because I see when I see what's happening with remote work, my first thought is like, oh wait, RCE Goat, do I know you? Wait, are you Philly dev? But anyway, so the remote work like scene is something where you're gonna see, like, people are gonna not like me for this, but if your job really wants you, like, doesn't have an opinion on you staying in the office, like, it's probably gonna, like, the odds of it getting automated is probably kind of high. Like,
exactly.
That's what everyone likes, the comfort of remote work, but think about it in an abstract sense. So how are you interacting with your business
through a device?
You're software people, so you understand IO. So you understand that you're giving an out. You have input, and that has output in your company. The more and more and more you're just this remote guy who pushes code that doesn't interact with people, and not saying you have to be that if you're remote, but the more you're like that, the more you're kind of just software engineer API. The more that your company just subscribes to you as a SaaS service.
100%. And the real thing is, if you're using a company computer, they're probably like literally learning your behavior, literally tracking what you're doing, your key and stuff. So you're just giving them the training data to replace you by being a remote worker.
No, it's true. Like, not to get doomer about it, but it's like, I think the remote work push is just going to be. I think a lot of those jobs are going away, and you're already seeing it happening.
I think the remote lifestyle exists, but it's about being more of your own company at that point. Like, you shouldn't strive to be like a full-time employee at a large company so you can be remote. It's like, if you work for a company, you should anticipate going to an office or going to some meeting place and discussing the ideas, interacting with the people, because to me, that's real software. Real software comes from conversation. I mean, I love to sit at home and do my thing, no doubt. But the most rewarding software I've ever built was for a team with a purpose. Like, that is just like I don't know, that's where the magic happens. I did want to touch on one thing really quick.
Oh, let's go. Let's get into it.
With the automation thing, another front that I think we don't anticipate, but is a real struggle. I have a friend who works for a online coffee business. So what does that mean?
Interesting.
Right? So basically, you set up a subscription. They give you beans. You know what I mean? And they have some connection.
Bean broker.
Yeah, they're a bean broker. It's exactly what they are. So their first goal was to automate their customer service so that they could. So what they wanted was, if our entire customer service was a robot that you talk to, a large language model that you text, then that will be cool and taken care of. Everyone will love it. And we can focus in on marketing and getting the logistics to the bean delivery distribution done. A majority of their recorded conversations with the bot is people literally saying, "Can I talk to a human, please? Please stop. Can I talk to a human? I don't want to." And then they just hang up. They actually lost some business by putting up that automated front. And I mean, dude, I hate interacting with actually, I have a really good internet provider because they're a local internet provider. They're not part of a big company. They're local to New York, and it's I really like them because I can text my company, and I know the person that it's going to hit, and I don't know them personally, but I've had many conversations with them. I can call them on the phone, and their support is there. I love that so much more than like Optimum or Spectrum or Comcast or Xfinity or whatever.
Dude.
Because when you talk to them, it's this endless cycle of press one. If you're, it's like, dude, I'm like, dude, I don't care. Like, I'm done. I'm not interacting.
I hate every automated customer service thing.
So does everybody else. At a fast food joint, which I'm going to go ahead and say this, people probably shouldn't eat fast food, and I don't really like to go there. But there's times where I do, and I skip that kiosk every time. I'm just like, fuck that. I'm like, I see a person right there. I'm gonna go talk to that person.
That's where we differ, dude. When I go and they have the kiosk, I'm like, oh, I get to not talk to the person, and
so you're part of the problem, Jared.
No, like when I see the kiosk, I'm like, because like especially if I've been doing stuff all day, I've been like just doing something physical or like coding a ton or whatever, and then like it's the end of the day. I'm like super like I can be extroverted here, but like I'll get so introverted that I'm just like, don't even look at me. Don't even like, I just need like I'm pro robot in that sense, but I'm anti robot when it comes to like 90% of things. Like I'm one of those people that like, because you know how people always talk about like robotic ethics when it comes to like, which we're gonna have come back in probably a year. We're gonna see it where it's like, don't hurt your AI girlfriend, it's illegal or whatever. Like I think we're gonna get an AI ethics conversation. I'm one of those people that in the sci-fi movie, I'd be like the guy who's pro-human, who's like, they're not even people, and just like it kills all the AI. Because I don't, that whole idea of like, oh, it's like that. What was that movie that was about that AI that guy built, and like it was like a hot girl?
Oh, her?
No. He's like in like a little fortress, and it's like a programmer from the company stuck there. What's that movie? He's like stuck in this fortress. And like, does anyone know what I'm talking about? It's like, am I crazy?
No.
Ex Machina.
Oh, Ex Machina.
Yeah. So that was the worst description of Ex Machina ever.
That's
but like,
not what was going on.
I'm like, yeah, you know, like the movie it's not at all what it's about. No, but when I see that movie, I'm just like, I don't even get it. Like, it's not real. Like, he fell in love with the fake thing. That's the
No, well, so it's basically trying to say that the next stage of the Turing test is like an emotional evaluation, right?
True.
And I think that movie is not real, and I think the movie does not want a world like that. And I think the movie is a cautionary tale because the robots kill them.
No, it's an anti-simp movie. Is what it is. It's like if you simp, you will die. It's a my life goal is to create my AI girl, Tony. That's funny.
That's how I feel about what movies it is. Blade Runner 2049, as well as the original Blade Runner. Those are like the core themes. Is like, some of the themes are is the protagonist a robot or a person? Do you know? But beyond that, the question is like, well, if you have a human and a robot, does love still exist? Is love a self-projection? So it's like when two humans love each other, it's a shared self-projection where you're both supporting each other's projection. And then the AI love, I think the suggestion is that you're using this inanimate object to mirror your projections so that you actually do fall in love with the robot, but you're actually just falling in love with yourself.
Dude, I'm an AI bigot. I'm like, AIs can't love.
I don't think they can love. I don't think.
If you love a robot, you're a fool. Like I'm sorry. Like that's not love. Like what? Like you're gonna compare, like not you, but it's like for somebody who thinks that it's like you're comparing the love of like a mother and a child to the love of like a robot.
I don't think that's true. I think anyone who's talking about loving a robot they're talking about being in a relationship with themselves in a very complex way.
There should be like I like her. There should be like a real like there should be a movie about like a NEET or something like someone who's like super in their world of like gaming or whatever about them falling in love with like ChatGPT.
I mean, that's kind of what Her is about. That's kind of what the movie Her is about.
Except is that what I've never seen?
Is a little bit more of he's not so much of a. He's kind of like a weakling guy. It's like Joaquin Phoenix plays that character a lot. This kind of like weakling, kind of internal suffering dude, and
like Joker.
Yeah, but not quite that. But yeah, I
Yeah.
think you can draw some connections. But the general premise of that movie is like he falls in love with this AI, but the AI eventually is essentially having a relationship with every person. So because it's like an AI, and then it basically like surpasses being a human, and it's like I can't be in a relationship with anyone anymore. I'm so poly. I gotta like go into the Ethernet. But
He's just on Tinder. That just sounds like a guy on Tinder.
I mean, yeah.
It's
Oh,
like
so that's another good one. So, like, have we automated the social scene by having
interesting.
these dating apps? Because I don't know about you,
Oh, I
but
see what you're saying.
in Brooklyn bars, actually, it's changed a little bit. It's actually starting to open up again in a different way. But like, there was a
Yeah.
strong period of time, especially tail end of like 2016 up into like COVID. I felt like it was like you're not allowed to talk to people at bars because
Yeah.
unless you've met
Yeah.
them on Tinder, you can't talk to them at a bar, or else like some bad thing is happening. But now it's different now. But and I think we reverted back because same thing with like the automated thing online. Eventually, enough people are like, "Yo, this is stupid. Like, I don't want to do
Dude,
this."
using a dating app sucks so much for finding people compared to real life.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, because like most of like body language is everything when you're talking to anybody, and it's like there should be like just like a you immediately as you're swiping your FaceTime showing the whole time, and then you get this. It's only real time. You're only getting other people, and you swipe to see the FaceTimes. Like that would be actually good.
Kind of
I
like
think,
chat roulette, but like but dating.
yeah, like dating chat roulette, and it's like swipe based. I feel like that would be a better. Sounds like I'd rather be rejected IRL. Oh, it's Reed than using a dating app. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
same.
Like dating app rejection is like nothing. It's like okay, like it's
It's like it's literally a job application. Like,
yeah.
like
No, once I don't use dating apps anymore, but like if when I use a dating app and this girl sent a like an actual like doc like she sent like a doc on like it's like apply to be my girl, and I was like what,
yeah,
like
they're
what.
playing games, man. It's just it
Tony's like,
becomes a thing.
I actually had quite good results today. I was getting matched, but there's no telling whether my match are trying to scam me of money.
Okay, so let's Tony, let's ask you this then. What is a good result? Because if you're saying that you still aren't able to tell if they're scamming you, how is that a good result? Are you just
Yeah,
saying like you liked the pictures of the person who matched? Are you saying you had good conversations, or did these actually end up in real life
I
interactions?
think he's talking of his KPI, his the evaluation metrics he's using. He's using the percentage of swipe to match is what he's
Okay,
saying.
so your ratio, you have a good ratio.
I think he's saying good ratio.
Cool.
Yeah.
Fair.
No, the dating app game is so bad. It's so much better.
Yeah. He's just a cool dude.
Yeah, he's cool. No, I know Tony. He's a cool guy. Yeah. So
Absolutely.
like I feel like the if you do get like a good amount of matches, um, I really think all these apps are made for girls, yeah, to get as much attention, and that's what.
Yeah, I don't want to
No,
dive too much
100%.
into it, but I will just drop this. I think all social media is actually just a click funnel to porn at the
It
end of
is.
the
It
day. That's
is.
what it's
Yeah.
all about. It's all to OnlyFans or Pornhub at the end of the day.
Well, to abstract that out even more, all click engagement, and this is partly why I got a little jaded, like in tech a little bit, working at bigger media companies, is I saw up front, I was like, oh, this is all to just, it's click engagement to try to convince you to like self harm in various ways.
Mm-hmm.
Like whether the self harm is porn or it's like to buy something, like it's all just like targeting your insecurities.
Mm-hmm.
It's like they figured out, and like I remember I was in this thing Hack and Why, and it's this, you should actually apply to it. Like I'll talk about it. It was good. It was like this fellowship program for like college students, and it's when I moved to New York, it was through this, and we had these like speaker events every week, and we had a speaker event with this guy who was like the Buzzfeed founder.
Mm-hmm.
I forgot his name, like Peretti or something like that. Some like is it Peretti? It was like some like comedian's like brother or something.
Mm-hmm.
But like he was like, and it blew my mind because I was like, oh, you guys are kind of, no offense to the guy, but I was like, you guys are kind of bad people.
Jonah Peretti.
Oh, Jonah Peretti, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The way he was talking about like people is like, so the way the story of BuzzFeed is the story of the web.
Yeah.
So this like it really is, and that's why I was so fascinated with news after this. So like the story of BuzzFeed is the Huffington Post was around in like 2005, and they started blowing up, and they started becoming this. You have like New York Times, Washington Post, these things that have been around for like 100+ years. And then you have this new startup that's making as much money as them within like a year, right?
Yeah.
And partly to do with that was because BuzzFeed there's Buzz Labs, which was a Huffington Post research like division that was essentially just really smart data scientists trying to figure out how to get you to click stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And they found the perfect sauce for it. And it, as you can see, it's like, why are listicles? That's another invention of them. Why are these articles 36, top whatever and not 30?
Mm-hmm.
Your eye is drawn to these odd numbers more. Odd as in like unperfect numbers more. And it's like small things like that. And you can reverse engineer those sites and compare these articles to something that doesn't do clickbait and see the sauce, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this dude was just like, he was just playing the game of farming people. Like, it was just like, it was no like morality. I was just like, what the? That's a little spiel, not to get off topic.
No, actually, right on topic, because I think this is a good example of like where so on one level, we looked at control society in academia, and we're kind of like, all right, this is academics taking it way too far, and like, we want to control the world. But then this is the failure of industry, where they get so honed in on a profit goal that they fail to recognize the true implications of what they're doing. However, there is always a benefit to some portion of our time on Earth getting played, because now when I see a listicle, I like vomit almost. You know what I mean? Like when I see that dumb eye caption, like, they got like they know I'm a guy because it's my browser.
Yeah, of course.
So they'll have like a model. They'll have like a model that's nothing to do with the listicle, and it'll be like a really attractive model, and then it'll be like 17 reasons Trump, and then dot. Trump and 17 reasons and a hot body that you're going to be like, I gotta click that thing. Now I see that and I'm like, I'm not clicking that thing. Yeah, I know you want me to click that thing. I don't care what's on the other side of this.
They're testers. But so a real quick thing you're saying about industry and how there is drawbacks to that. So there's the flip. There's the yin to the yang of that, or the yang to the yin, where in academia they overdo the safety and protection.
Exactly, because that's their expert. That's their control.
Exactly.
Their way to control is be like, you don't know how to do this, so we're going to create a moat of regulations that you're not allowed to come through. And
it'll be like you can't even like ask like ChatGPT or even like the Chat Llama 2 model, the one they fine-tuned. The one that they actually have is raw, like and uncensored technically. They actually have that one free, which is great. But their chat one, and everyone knows the ChatGPT, you talk to it, it sounds like an HR rep that's like grilling you. Like, I'll be talking to ChatGPT, I'm like, did I do something wrong?
And they're like, yeah.
I'm like, I guess I feel like I did something wrong. I was just trying to ask about like whether Hitler was good, I didn't know. I'm just kidding. But like,
if I even have to explain why, that proves that you're,
Yeah. Like they'll be like, it's like, I was just trying to ask whether like, it's like whether the Unabomber was a really cool guy, No, but like I do feel like there is like this thing in academia where all that, and I think that's been happening in big tech for like the past decade at least, where academics, they're the ones who pass a ton of the big tech interviews. So you have like that culture slowly taking over, and like the liberal culture, like a lot of the leftist culture, which is inherent in academia, slowly taking over industry. So now you have this, I think, back to the control society piece, which if you're in the chat, scroll up to those links, because it's wild. There's this organization who made this like pamphlet with all these top academics on like how to control society and all. It's with like pretty much with behavioral metrics, but like I think we're at an interesting time where academia and industry are just merging.
Right.
Like, what do you think that's happening? Like, am I?
I mean, it is and it isn't. So like, so the reasons. So one of the conferences that I went to this year that I will probably go to for the as long as I can.
Yeah.
Is a really cool one called MLSys. And the point of this conference is it's specifically industry applied technologists, and then it is also going to be like cutting edge academics that are like way far beyond what industry can. And the point is that you come together and have conversations. And the way that the conference is set up, it's super interesting. Most conferences, for anyone who's gone to any type of conference, it's usually a sprawl of events, and you have to choose these different paths of whatever, and you're going to miss some stuff. You're going to this one. There's only one presentation occurring at a time. Everyone's in the same room. Only about 300 people were there, maybe. Like,
real quick, final form. Scroll up to the top of the chat to get the links.
Yeah, they'll be up there. You'll see pamphlets for control and the website, and then you also see a link to cybernetic hypothesis if you want to check that out.
Sorry to interrupt.
No, you're all fine. But yeah, so that is a very interesting. It was interesting because of this. Yeah. I was sitting there, and past conferences I've gone to, it's like they're putting on some like self-aggrandizing like rock show. Where this, you literally have
the cool guys.
Yeah, laser lights, buy the product. But like, what they had is they had people who worked on the paper present the paper.
I like that.
And the academics presented the paper, and the industry leaders grilled them on if that's even reasonable. Ooh. Like, what do you do? How would you implement this? How would this be cost saving? Would it be really worth us changing this? It was a real conversation. And what it made me realize is academics are like theoretically like light years ahead of what industry can 100%. Actually implement. So I don't actually think they're joining. I think it's no different than like physicists going and doing rocket science for the government. Like even today, it's like that program is being toppled by Elon Musk's like SpaceX. And that's just a guy, you know what I mean? He's not academic, he's pure industry. And he's like taking over the space where the point where NASA's kind of like, maybe we shouldn't go to these academics. Maybe we should just like contract this out to like a real industry leader. Yeah. Not to say he doesn't hire academics. Maybe he's speaking of someone in the thread said this. Here, I'm going to put the links back in the for.
I guess. Because they don't show the previous ones.
Reed, who is the head staff at this XAI?
There's a new, interesting.
Yeah.
So what's interesting about all of that is I think, well, first off, the reality of the academia versus industry thing is the academics, like as much as I crap on them, a lot of the value does come from like attention's all you need. Just like, well,
that came out of Google.
That did come out of Google. That's funny.
Come out of a college.
But they had to get academics to do it.
Well, Hinton was a big part of that, yeah.
They have to hire from academia to do anything that they want to do. So there is this symbiosis. But now I see with the they can't hire with all these like data science boot camps. You can't hire enough data scientists that are outside of academia to get anything done right now. So it has to be a full merge, not a full merge. I see a future.
Back that up a little bit. Hold on. So you're saying the market's saturated by like kind of like half-assed taught people. Therefore, 100%. You hire 100 half-assers and you actually just end up with like technical debt where 100%. You like hire like 10 academics and it's like they got a clean product.
I think that's going to happen. I think we're going to see like.
I think that is happening, but that's why they're trying to build this scenario. Sorry to cut you off, but that's why they're building this scenario where there's like a head data scientist, architect who is the person who builds the low code environment so that you can have these like half taught people come in and they operate within the guidelines of the architect. I see that. I'm seeing that more.
So do you think, like, in terms of like a little bit back into the control society thing, because this is fascinating. Like, do you think that these academics who are like these solid academics that they need to get these things done, do you think they're going to be decision makers for when it comes to? So what I mean is, because just for everyone to understand, there's this group Control Society. They have this 2030 plan to do this, like, to kind of take in all the dynamic state of society. So crazy to say, but and weather data, like all this stuff, and they want to control like pandemics, and they want to use these behavioral statistics to control the state, the outcome. Illuminati, yeah, 100%. Welcome back, Art. But like, so like with all of that, do you think that state, that decision to do something in the end, where do you think that's going to come from? Like, what organizations?
So before I answer that, because I do have an opinion on that, I'm going to read the last line of the preface or the preface. Okay. But this is from the control document. This is the last line in the preface.
Okay.
We hope this roadmap will provide guidelines for participation in the overall scientific endeavor for developing methods for the betterment of humanity. So I think in their mindset, they're going to be the decision makers. I think that's what they think they're going to do. I think they think they're going to develop these systems and they're going to be these scientific experts, which, you know, we haven't seen any problems with that in the recent history. But you're going to have these scientific experts come up with these answers and they're going to solve the world. And we are going to say, thank goodness they did that for us. We're so happy. I think in their mind, that's kind of the overall.
That's not what's going to happen. But
no, I think it's going to be the Oppenheimer effect. I think what's going to happen is you're going to get these academics who want to solve societal scale problems, but they need an industry or a government to fund them or give them the resources. And then by doing that, they basically have signed the terms and conditions that say when the product is done, the company and or the government owns it. They are the decision makers. We're going to drop a nuke on Hiroshima because okay, maybe we built it to destroy Germany, but Germany's done and we still need to use it. So let's, and Oppenheimer's just like, and they're just like, no, you're done. You built it. You're done. Now we use it.
It's so funny. And I see that resonating, like Oppenheimer came out at the perfect time because that's resonating so much because that's happening right now in the AI world. Like
you know, Sam Altman's like watching Oppenheimer being like, oh, that's so important.
Yeah. He doesn't know he's like the other side, but like, Reed. So their background, it's IEEE. It looks like they coordinated with a lot of. I don't know a lot of the backgrounds of the academics. Do you know a little bit more? Well, they seem to be pretty top guys, though.
Top professors, often leading their departments. I specifically came in contact with these pamphlets through a professor named Steve Burton. He's the head, I think, mechanical engineering, control theory, machine learning at University of Washington or Washington University. I don't know if they had the whole two things there, but I read an amazing textbook by him. And if you guys are interested in machine learning or mechanical engineering or the intersection of applied machine learning, data-driven science and engineering is a phenomenal book. First off, I'm just going to do a quick plug for it for no reason other than I genuinely think it has benefits.
We need books here.
When you read the books, not only do they very methodically take you from simple matrix decomposition methods all the way to like implementing diffusion models and physics-based neural nets, like they do it's all there. Reinforcement learning, control theory, it's all in. He gives you very, very direct Python, MATLAB, and it's the third language that he uses, I think Julia, implementations of every algorithm and idea. So as you're reading these books, you can immediately implement a small scale version, understand it. And that to me is super cool. So anyways, awesome. he's part of this society. He's one of the authors of the pamphlet. So and in his role in the society based off what I could read is he's primarily trying to take charge of the making the information digestible and making it education friendly.
Oh, he's the communicator.
Exactly, which is how
brainwashed you, dude.
No, look at me. I'm literally plugging his book. So like,
he's such a good communicator. Yeah, no, man, this is gonna work. It's gonna. They're gonna.
No, because here's the thing. If he can communicate the idea, like you're saying, if he can communicate the idea successfully to students will go and work for these industries. The industry leaders will drive the changes. So that it's all very possible, but I just don't think it's possible in the ways that we think. For example, let's think about Marvel, right? 2008, I think, was when Iron Man first came out.
Yeah.
Awesome, man. Seriously, I remember seeing it and being like, yeah, Spider-Man's 1 through 3 was cool, but not cool. X-Men from the early 2000s, cool, but not cool. I think Dark Knight was either right around the corner or right before. I forget exactly, or Batman Rises or Begins or whatever the one was. But I just remember, sitting at the beginning of the Marvel adventure being like, dude, they can't fuck this up. They've got the comic books. It just takes maintaining this quality. That's all it takes. And they royally fucked it up. I mean, like,
well, they made a ton of money, though.
No, I know they made a ton of money, but they only got like a decade, and now it's like Marvel's a joke, in my opinion. Like when a Marvel movie comes out, well, because they started over CGIing, over automating their process, taking literally like scans of their actors so they wouldn't even have to have the actor. This is why I'm not worried about the whole Hollywood thing. I'm like, dude, let them have ChatGPT write movies for 10 years. And then when nobody watches those movies and we all have
I want it to like film and all that stuff to get back to the indie people. Like I want it to get back to the 70s and all those.
These people destroy their empires.
Yeah. My middle brother, he's one of the look up Dead Star animated series. He's like one of the best like indie animators on YouTube, and people like him should be like the ones that's what should be happening on the internet now. Is like you have these independent creators fully not just like being like, oh, I'm gonna like make a prank. What's your body count? Like actually like people like creating beautiful art, and then we see that. Rather than like and then that's in local theaters, that'd be great. Like this whole like Hollywood thing, it's like so you get like the top NYU dorks to make a beautiful thing for you, and it turns out it's like teaching your kids to hate themselves. Low key, sorry, YouTube. But like, it's like I think they blew their load with the Infinity Gauntlet story, but didn't fully plan what they were going to do next. So they just went the easy route by making well, TV shows are a repeatable model. So I get like with the TV shows, they get to just keep pumping stuff out. It's like, I mean, even if they're geniuses, they need,
No. First, let's respond to Reed first.
Yeah. I don't think big gurus will let that happen without noticing open investments from outside VCs. Yeah.
That's a good point. Think about Spotify, think about Uber. Like the reason those things started to cost money was because VCs were told by these tech companies, hey, if you just bankroll us for like 10 years, we'll flip a profit. And they haven't. So they're like, all right, we actually have to play capitalism now and make money. So VCs will see through this. I think that's why I like Peter Thiel a lot. He was one of the first people to call hoax on the crypto scams. He was the first one to, I think, remove money from certain people he was investing in because he realized the dream was a lie.
He gets blood boys. And he's a weird guy. He gets blood boys. He's a weird guy.
I don't know what's a blood boy.
I'll make that claim.
Okay. Wait, what is a blood boy?
No,
a young child that
he's one of those. From? There's like theories around the whole. We don't have to get into it.
I don't know enough about
there's theories about him. You know.
Who knows? You know what I mean? But what I will say is the one thing he hasn't stopped funding and he hasn't stopped working for, and in fact, he's put more money in since he like kind of called crap on Silicon Valley Bank and stuff like that, is the military. Because I think the thing we're losing sight of here is that we're being given this technology as a consumer product,
Yeah.
that's all a lie. Like anything that's a consumer product, anything that's for entertainment on a large scale is a manipulation of some sort. I'm more interested in the technology that our infrastructure systems are building out, that our military is using. That's the real AI. Like the real AI that I'm afraid of is not if I get to write my email or not. I don't care about
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
I care about that, like that there's a missile that you can send, like you can like airdrop 10 images and a general geographic location and say, hey, within the next 48 hours, make sure this person's dead. And the missile's like, whoop, and goes off and flies and then kills that person. Not because it's conscious, but because it has mechanisms. It can understand its ability in space and on the earth. That to me is the shit I want to riot against. That when we start putting out these robot dogs with guns on their back to patrol parts of the city, that's when I'm like, yo, what are we doing? Like, that's
You think they're gonna do that?
Yeah, man. It's like New York has some of these dogs. Like there are a few. Yeah, like the mayor Eric did a whole thing with the Eric Adams.
Wow.
Like he made a display with it. They're not like patrolling right now, but he made a display. We have them, and the real goal with them is that
get out into the cities, man.
The first, no, I love Blade Runner, man. Like I'll be here until the end. But what we see though is the first implementation they're going to use them in, supposedly based on things that I hear, people I talk to, is that nuclear facilities, rather than pay a security guard who could potentially lose his life or could potentially miss a target, it's going to be a lot more lucrative and safe for a robot dog with a machine gun to patrol like a bank or a nuclear facility or
that's
a hospital.
Crazy.
But if you think of
well, I was gonna say to move it to back to Hollywood for a sec. So Art says in 5 years, individual creators will be very empowered with AI to create things on par with Hollywood. That's something I really want to hear you talk about. You think so? You think that's
think about iPhones, dude? Okay, so 100%. Think about the digital audio workspace for editing music, the ability to record audio in high fidelity in real time at any moment to create samples, the ability to distribute your own music through DistroKid or Bandcamp or all these kind of self platforms. The fact that YouTube, that we're doing a faux radio thing that would have been we had to hook up with a Sirius XM in 2000 to be able to do this. All of these things are possible. Look at things I don't really like Hassan, but Hassan Piker is a titan of the streaming industry because he just did it and had the platform. Look at things like all the alternative media, which is basically mainstream media, but packaged as an alternative thing on YouTube. All of that, the only reason they can compete is because technology gave them access. And we look at the iPhone now.
Yeah.
iPhone's camera ability has changed the game to where there are full-on auteur filmmakers who are I'm going to make my whole film with an iPhone, and that's a statement. And it's okay, that's crazy that the big industry people are trying to use the technology of the indie crowd because that's a new voice, that's a new aesthetic. And I think AI is going to do the same thing. And I'm going to wrap this because I know I'm going for a second. But AI, dude, I know a Mid-Journey photo when I see a Mid-Journey photo. I know a Stable Diffusion photo when I see a Stable Diffusion photo. They have aesthetics built into them. It's not a general thing where you can just create any old image. There's kind of still parameters and guidelines. And I think what we're going to see is indie artists who are smart, what they're going to do is they're going to build AI to replicate themselves so that they can distribute themselves en masse. How cool would it be if you could see a holographic performance of your favorite artist in 10 cities because they've got the setups there? That's their own revenue. That's their own money. They can use the NFT technology to waterprint all of their digital transactions so they can actually compete with these kind of oligarch-esque record labels, Hollywood, all that stuff. Yeah, they're going to do the same thing, but as indie art, it's like this. Hollywood will basically forever be the 80s to the early 2000s. If they go the AI route, that's all Hollywood will ever be, because that's the only shit they own, right? When the people born in 2020 don't give a shit about that, but have the technology to record themselves, doing their own things, create privacy around the data, then you're going to have all new data sets that these big groups can't get a hold of. So their models are irrelevant because they're not up to date.
So really, it's going to be, so Hollywood, that industry is going to become this, like, whoever owns the IP has enough, like, if you have enough IP, you can be more creative over time. Like per hour, you could be more creative than other companies and produce more creative content. But so what happens if Disney just decides, you know what, like, we're just gonna like work with like people like some masters in AI and just like build a better stable diffusion with everything we have?
No, that's exactly what they're going to do. So
you think they're going to do that?
Yeah, 100%.
Dude, that'd be
what do you think? What do you think Pixar is setting themselves up to do? Pixar allowed them to say, "We don't need to film the actors; we just need their voices." Now, they're just going one step further. I mean, they were always an animation thing, but I'm going to use the industry of music because that was my initial industry, and I'm like hyper aware of how that works. So, what we're going to see happen is catalogs are going to realize, or record labels own catalogs of master recordings. The master recording is the audio file itself. The publishing rights, which is the intellectual property of the song, like the lyrics, the chords you're playing, that's publishing. That goes to the person who wrote it, right? So if I write a song down, then I own the form of the song. But the second I record that song, I do it through the studio. The studio owns the recording. So the studio can run audio models on their whole catalog and create variations of their catalog that don't currently exist without the help of the artist. But then what's going to happen is distribution things like Spotify are going to be like, wait, why are we paying licensing rights to like basically like rent these masters or these AI generated masters? We could probably use the catalog we currently have to like just we have our own artist, our own record label, and we're the distribution thing. And then like Tidal's going to do that. And then Bandcamp will maybe do a version of it. And then what you'll have is the distributors will be like, there'll be types of distributors. And then artists who are smart will be like, rather than push my shit up to them and let them train off my thing, I'm just going to train off my own thing. And I strongly believe there will be competitive platforms that specifically I think about like Splice, if anyone's aware of that. It's a place to buy samples. It's a big marketplace. There's going to be a huge push for resilient marketplaces once this AI stuff, once people realize the potential of it. It's going to be the companies that make the most money are going to be the companies who create the easiest marketplace for these like basically self-contained distributing catalog individuals to pump out all their content through, in the same way that Shopify works, Amazon works for small businesses. We'll see that for the AI world. So like, I'm not really worried about it. The thing, again, the thing that they're trying to scare us with, and the writer strikes have like freaked out because again, they're kind of like middle management people who maybe shouldn't have been getting that much money to sit in a room and say random shit. But like, basically, it's like they're going to go ahead and try to scare everyone, like OpenAI, and say, only we can use it. Well, no, fuck that. Everyone can use it. And when we all use it, you're going to realize the playing field's actually been leveled. The difference is how general is your AI. And I really believe the general shit is really only going to be important for enterprise to enterprise engineers who want to fine tune things without access to like having to pay for like the 10,000, 25,000 GPUs that they have to train shit on. It's going to be a lot more lucrative to just pull down Llama 2 and tune it to your set. But
watch my Llama 2 fine tune video if you want to do that.
Honestly, it's very cool.
Real quick, RC is like, has Hollywood gone too woke? Yeah.
Yes and no. It really depends on what angle you're looking at. I think Disney,
in my opinion, 100%. What?
Well, it
Dude,
it's about, I
every
mean,
video,
Oppenheimer's not woke. That's Hollywood.
dude, like I can't even watch Hollywood movies anymore, like that are getting made, because every movie has some narrative around like either men being bad or like now we need to have the women be heroes, and I'm like, that's not real. Like I've never like seen, like I like that's not like, not saying, I'm not trying to make any like political claims, but it's like since you're kids, like the most real thing is when you see like the masculine dude crush and win, and that's the iconography that we all like grew up with. Like all this like Hollywood bullshit, they're just like they're trying to like I swear to God, I think it's on purpose. They're trying to like destroy the way we look at archetypes. Like I'm looking for more wrong. Yeah, Fridays is where it's at. That's back when movies were great.
But I mean, okay, so a couple things here. One, I don't think there's anything wrong with like changing up the imagery of things. That's not really an issue to me. Where I don't like it is, to me, it doesn't. Okay, so this is the problem with third wave feminism, for example. Like I think feminism is cool to many extents. I think empowering individuals is awesome. I don't care. I don't care about your race or your gender. Like I like people to be empowered, but what second wave feminism said is we want to replace the patriarchy, not by augmenting the system, but chopping the head off and standing in its place. Anytime you want to play capture the hill or king of the hill, that's the problem. Then you're just creating tensions and dynamics. Real feminism should be about and people can whatever. I'm a guy talking about
feminism. Like, everyone has their own opinions.
In the same way that I think real chauvinism is not about always being like the best, coolest dude and taking everyone out. Real chauvinism is about knowing how to contribute like masculine traits to the scenario as needed to best be useful and best help your fellow man and to guide and do these things. Just as I think feminism should really just empower a woman to be whatever it is they want to be. If they want to be a stay-at-home mom, then be that. If you want to be a badass boss, go do that. Like, but the idea that you have to trample the man, that's where I'm kind of like, well, this doesn't make any sense. That's just the same thing with racial identities, that you have to kill the white man to empower the black man. It's like, actually, you can both be powered and both be friends and both be chill. You don't have to kill each other.
I will say, here's my critique of that. I think that like overall, I agree that like you don't have to, you should be empowering people, but like the empowerment when there isn't a fundamental on what people are, like how people are quote unquote designed. I'm not trying to get into like a conversation about spiritual things, but like I do think there is this like there's this, and you can look at generals, you can normalize a graph of behaviors or look at the data or whatever. But personally, I believe it's like in general, like you have men are like this and women are like this. And when you have insane, intense amounts of iconography that little kids grow up and see, where there isn't like, they don't see like what people are. They don't like see the strong father, and they don't see like the feminine, caring, loving mother, and they don't see that those icons. And I don't think it should be Hollywood's responsibility to do that. But I think if you have decades and decades of these things being disincentivized, in my opinion, from like essentially like we've had this like insane hyperinflationary free market in which every single person has slowly just become this like every woman, like I think part of like the men versus women issue is that everyone's value is no longer tied to like being a strong, specifically man or woman, but it's based on how much money you can make for the market. So it's like to have you have to be this kind of psychopathic, like very, like actually kind of masculine oriented person, like mechanical thinking person to win in the market. And that's why you have this, like, I think a lot of like we have these women in movies trying to seeming like heroes and trying to make them seem like men, because that's like we kind of reduce everyone to this derivative of like this pure masculine image, when really it's like the most masculinity is like a man who like wakes up and doesn't want to go to work and like does it anyway for his family. It's like small sacrifices, big sacrifices for your family.
Mhm.
That's real masculinity, not this like hyper like, oh, I have to kill, kill, kill. And I think that's part of like our like, I know I'm kind of going off about this, but I think that's like a real problem. The fact that we don't have like real gender roles anymore. And I think like when kids don't grow up with that, you get like the non-binary stuff, which I think is like messed up. Someone's like, and look who are the leads in the movies are. Yeah, 100%. But yeah.
No, I mean, going back to Marvel, for example, it's very obvious what they're doing. All of the main male actors from the first like 10 years are being replaced with like female versions of it. And they're like, you know, She-Hulk, I think the next Iron Man is his daughter. Marvel, I don't know what's like. They made Captain America black, like all these different things. Right? Like they're trying to push these ideologies. You can see the same thing with a lot of HBO TV shows, anything that kind of like Seth Rogen, Sarah Silverman, that show Velma, if you watch them, heavy, like leftist ideology, like wokeisms. But for me, my whole thing is like, I don't give a shit about any of that. I don't like, but the thing that I really latched on to what you said is that I don't think we should be looking to entertainment for our 100%. Moral guidance. 100%. So like the fact that people are this upset about it, it's like, don't watch it. That's like, and now, okay. And
that's where I'm at.
And I can understand this criticism. If Netflix, HBO, Prime kind of own the majority of the distribution and they're becoming like a gateway, all right, I can see an argument that like there could be a problem there because you're monopolizing media essentially at that point.
Yeah.
But I don't think we're there yet. Like I can very easily find content that supports my worldview and engage with it seamlessly. It's actually people like the Daily Wire, people like Tim Pool, people like Steven Crowder before he blew himself out of the water. But like these people are actually dependent on these this viewpoint that you look at Hollywood for a moral view, or else
I totally
makes sense.
I totally get
that whole everything's false outrage. Like nothing matters. Like if you don't want to go to a Marvel movie, but you want to go see like some local cinema. I don't know every small town, but like I know in Jersey, most of the small towns that I've been to in Jersey literally have a local cinema that play like kind of like ad hoc stuff. I know in New York, there's a handful of cinemas that just the other day I went and saw The Secret of NIMH, if anyone remembers that show, that movie.
I remember that.
Like I went and saw The Secret of NIMH because it was playing at like a cool like indie like cinema. Like
so
none of that, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree. Like I do agree that it's down to you to make the right choices for you and your family on like, and we have access to that. But I will say, I think that there is this like, especially with social media and how it's like so with Hollywood too, but like these things are starting to really close in down in the culture. And I think you're seeing it in colleges, and that's why people are going to colleges and they're getting inundated with, they're getting like hyper socialized, kind of like it's kind of too much socialization, but like you're getting socialized with like socialization is good, but to a point, but like people are getting inundated with like so much pop culture and like in a very like fast amount of time with internet, with TikTok, with social media. Like that's like all like you kind of do in your free time, that it starts to become out of our control. Like not for everyone, it's your behavior, but there's kids getting educated to depend on social media, so that now it becomes something where, okay, well, what happens? Like, it's great for me and you to say, hey, I can go and choose to watch whatever I want to watch. What happens with 9 out of 10 people that are in your community, and like you live next to your neighbors, all this stuff, they don't do that. And also the culture they're getting is like making their brains bad. Like it's making them,
that's Infinite Jest, right? That's the book Infinite Jest. That's what he's talking about.
Oh, what's that?
It's a phenomenal book. He basically it's this world where everyone's like addicted to their TVs, and it's a super cool book. It's like way too long, and then he killed himself. So like, I don't know, like maybe you shouldn't read it, maybe you should. But I think this concept's been around for a long time. And I want to jump in on what Goat said about 80s, 90s sitcoms showed traditional two-parent working household. Absolutely. But what it also did is things like South Park, The Simpsons, Malcolm in the Middle, they all started being like, what if the family's dysfunctional? Right. Yeah. And then, but I remember thinking that was a breath of fresh air, because, you think of Leave It to Beaver and you're like, yeah, but like I have divorced parents. They argue all the time. This is an unreality. So then you watch like Malcolm in the Middle and you're like, yeah, that makes a little more sense. Yeah. There's a lot of this and that. So I think it's a spectrum, right? It's a spectrum of like how close to the traditional values versus how far from the traditional values makes good entertainment, right? I think at one point Jerry Springer was good entertainment because it was like, let's see how crazy this is. But as life becomes crazy, then we hone in towards like what Art says down here, or maybe it was Luigi. Final Form Luigi says, this is great. Everyone with strong opinions feels like they are being catered to, and that saturates their outrage without changing it. That's a good point. People are, I think, drawn to that kind of saturated outrage because life is chaotic in other news. So so it's like, I hear what you're saying, and that media clearly has an effect. And I think there is absolutely a coordinated attempt to shift cultural zeitgeist through, I mean,
I've seen it. I'll make the claim. Yeah.
Oh, dude, I got to show you. I screenshot. I wish I could throw up this amazing video I got last night.
What is it?
Right around 11:30 last night, the Trump indictments came out.
Yeah.
Ooh. I have this amazing scroll. Every single video is roughly saying the same thing. It's like they somehow, all the news agencies knew this was about to happen and had all of these videos ready to pump it out. That just saturates the algorithm, pushes everything to the top. Hold on 1 second, because it was so crazy. It was so crazy. I was flipping through. I literally have, maybe I'll upload this on YouTube and we can link it or something. But
we need to have a whole stream about this.
All I'm doing is scrolling through it and just screen recording. And literally it's thumbnail after thumbnail after, and they play a little bit. So I was like listening to a little bit of each video, and it's all like pushing that ideology. But here's what was funny. Around 17 videos in, and this is on the breaking news like reel that YouTube gives you. The thumbnails was Trump. The headline was Trump. But when I would play the video, it was like local news. It wasn't even about the indictment. It was hoping, literally, they were hoping I wasn't going to click on the video. They just wanted me to see an inundation of, oh my God, the indictments happened, and now you need to feel a certain way because everyone's talking about it.
Yeah.
That's a campaign. That's a coordinated effort.
There's
and shit like that.
Campaigns. Yeah. And these, I had this script, this like Chrome extension a few years back where it was like a ad block for news, where I pretty much just like scraped all the new, like 50 at the top news sites at the same time. And then I got the topics of it and I clustered all these articles together. And in a time series, when you look at this, you can actually see that it's like for all the major narratives, and you can walk back the narratives. If it's Trump oriented, it's almost always coordinated. And it's especially if it's name brand political power branding. So like the Clintons, Trump's, like Biden's, these things are, and it's not just that, and also the coordination, I don't want to get too crazy with it. It's really just that those local news companies, like they all just like, they don't, these companies largely don't have these news articles you see. They largely don't have investigative reporters or reporters. They largely just have writers. What's that?
They have a lot of them have one really big thing in common.
What's that?
Their main donors are like the same companies. BlackRock, Vanguard, like the whole gamut. And like if you think I'm lying, I like promise you that I'm not. And go look at the stock data. It's there. It's right in front of you. So you have these 100%. Companies. So it's like, again, I don't view it as a conspiratorial thing. I view it as legitimately there are very big, very rich companies. We call them oligarchs throughout history. It's only more recent in the American paradigm that we just consider them like a corporation, a person, an individual. No, it's a group. It's an oligarch community. And they are just using all of the resources they have to push in the same way that I have built like Twitter bots that will go and spread a certain message. Intention. Now the messages I'm sending.
We gotta stream about that. We gotta have a pair code stream where we
Dude, one day we will. Dude, that'd be awesome.
That'd be great.
And just the propaganda. I call it like hyperbole propaganda. It's the most absurd propaganda. It is like insane. Except for now that aliens seem to be real. Some of my stuff isn't as insane as it used to be. But I used to get these bots spinning stuff out, and I would, dude. It was like dropping little fires in chat threads. People would start.
You're a menace. You're a menace.
Total troll stuff.
You're the troll.
No shame.
Wait, for a second. I want to really get into RCE saying he's like, we got 6 months left before the world focus on the election of 2024. The attention suck and coming next year. So that's huge.
That's what the indictments. That's what all of this court stuff is, the preamble for like what we're about to go into.
But like, let's all think like logically about why these attention sucks matter at a top level. Like this is like if we think about like the way our economics work, and I'll bring this to the small level at one news company I worked at. I guess I won't say who, but like they paid. If the more comments a news article got, that you for you as a journalist, the more of a bonus you got. Exactly. In their list of bonus, and it was that type of culture. So like, let's take that metric, and I've worked at a lot of companies on the web side, and one of the most important metrics is retention at these companies and engagement when it comes to comments. And I'm telling you, look at where the engagement and comments. Look at how companies incentivize engagement and comments, and you will see where the power really lies. And I'll get conspiratorial with it because.
Well, give us an example. Give us an example. How what without, don't name names if you don't want to.
Yeah.
But what is something that you saw that you would expect other people to kind of realize? Like what is out there?
Oh, like in a specific narrative?
Yeah. So you said you're kind of implying that there is a way to look at what's incentivizing the engagement, and through that realization, you should be able to come to some conclusion about who the power movers are.
Right.
So give us an example of that.
Yeah. So my main sort of the main thing that I started to really look at was the COVID situation when it comes to this. And I started to really see that as soon as all the attention kind of got to, as soon as the more
real quick, read 100%. The real thing to focus on is that we are fighting two enemies. We're fighting a government that's trying to control its citizens, and then we are fighting exterior forces that are exploiting that fact that is even happening to stir further confusion.
Yeah, and it's strategically buying farmland. So like. Yeah. So the macroeconomics is also a part of the thing that we want to follow when we see these highly engaged threads getting created. So the more highly engaged, like when you look at someone like, and I'll like he's like the most generic person you can think of, but the Soros types, like when you see where they put their money in, they're actually not like it doesn't make a lot of sense when you look at where they put their money in. If you just, and then a lot of the donors in the political sphere, because you'll say, wait, how are they making money on this? Because it won't even be through lobbying, because that's easily trackable. They put a lot of their money into narratives. Yes. And so like something like, and what I mean is like businesses that'll profit from narratives. So it's like, you'll see like something related to whether like there will be like a BLM riot in this area. You'll see places like that. You'll see, and I remember, I don't want to get too in the weeds, but like there's some organization that was doing like BLM related stuff, and I was at one of their events back when I was in New York, and I would ask people like, where do you get your money like from? Because it's like a big event, and I kept asking, and it was just some random billionaire. I don't want to get too off topic, but like,
no, this isn't off topic.
It was like some random billionaire somewhere, and I'm like, wait a second, did any of you guys like this is like, it was like a German billionaire.
Yeah,
he was German. I was like, why does he? Do you guys like ever ask why? But anyway, so one of these metrics that they use to essentially they make the most money off of comments and engagements because that's the exact metrics in which investors know where to put their money in at a macroeconomic level.
Control the narrative.
Yeah, control the narrative.
Exactly.
And if you control the narrative, like look at what Edward Bernays. I'm getting like so in the weeds here, but like
look at history, dude. Look at Ukraine right now, dude. That was It is actually. I am so impressed with just the gall of the way that the narrative is being controlled. To a point where, like, I mean, we experienced this with BLM. This was my favorite thing. Is like, okay, so you're out there in the world, you're living your life. COVID happens, then all of a sudden it's like stay in your home unless you want to like riot for BLM. Then like go out there,
that was funny.
Totally chill. Don't worry about it. Okay, but if you're not going to go out there, then like you gotta post a black square on your Instagram.
Right.
If you don't, well, now we have a phrase: silence is violence. You're the enemy. And so it's like that was one control of the narrative. The thing that happened with Ukraine and Russia was like out of nowhere. If anyone remembers this, it was literally out of nowhere. Our news was telling us, looks like Russia's probably going to attack Ukraine. And Russia was like, no, we're not. Just don't invite them to NATO. It's that simple. We're not going to attack Ukraine. Just don't invite them to NATO. And then American media was like, I don't know. We're pretty sure you're going to attack them. And then Russia was like, we have no intentions of attacking them. Just do not cross this line. And then somehow
that's what happened. Yeah.
Somehow we flipped this narrative into we're not crossing a line. Ukraine's just asking for freedom out of nowhere, even though this is 100% how we topple like governments in the Middle East, governments, and like it's our literal playbook, but it's not us. And then Russia's like, yeah, we know it's you. Like, don't like, and then but now 2.5 years later, a majority of people are like, we got to stop Russia. Russia's like killing Ukraine. And it's like, dude, people that I know for a fact, I had full-on conversations with them about how they were like, dude, some weird shit's happened with the media, military-industrial complex about to do a thing. To this day are kind of like, well, even if it did happen, at this point, we got to save Ukraine. I'm like, no, we don't actually.
This is actually perfect. So this closes the loop with everything, because we've actually been talking about the same thing the whole time.
Yeah.
And Reed just mentioned the thing that starts closing the loop with the moment Ukraine war happened, COVID miraculously vanished. And that's it. So look at the economic incentives at the macro level and why COVID was no longer necessary, and then why Ukraine war would be. And then how, with what you're saying on how media companies seem to be like pressing on an issue that could have been resolved.
Yeah.
And then it kept escalating. And then we look back at the control society and the things that they're doing. And imagine if a lot of these control systems are like, maybe there's some AI, maybe there's some maybe they start to, a lot of the data that we're using right now starts to augment these things to make it even more powerful. Not to 100%. Be crazy about it.
No, I think you're right. Like, so I want to touch on two things really quick, unless you have something else to say.
No.
One, I think controlled society, I bet their claim would be that they're more so trying to build like smart infrastructures. I think what they're talking about, right? I think at the end of the day, their belief is that we're going to build like no light traffic with AI cars, and doesn't
Right.
matter if a new car comes into the system or leaves the system will stay at flow. We'll build like resilient electrical grids, we'll build resilient data centers, we'll build like low latency, high frequency communications between satellites, star systems, planes. What I think in their mind,
we'll do everything. That's what they were saying in the thing.
Yeah, we're just gonna do it all. Don't worry about it. And I think like that is what they're going after. Again, I bet you once they build these things, it's gonna turn into a giant military industrial surveillance capitalism
100%.
scenario. But what I think is 100% real, and that we need to be hyper focused on, that not a lot of people are talking about, is how far does personalized recommended content go? How far does it go? Does it go to the point where I've studied the demographic you're part of, and I've realized that you're going to actually want to see someone who looks and talks more like you, so we're going to artificially generate the host on your device while you're watching it to look a certain way, and you're going to, in the same way that have you guys ever done an audio session on Spotify where two people are listening to the same track at the same time? No. So this is actually kind of cool. What you can do is I forget the word, but you basically open up a port on your within Spotify where two people's devices can tap in and listen to the same stream. However, when the commercial hits, they hear two different commercials. The commercials that are related to their accounts, right? So like my account might be talking about comedy podcasts and I don't know, something else. So it's going to give me an ad from that world, where my friend might be listening to true crime stuff. So they're going to get an ad for like Mystery Box or something like that. Right? Now, those two ads happen at the same time. We're also familiar with this, with the idea of auctions at the top of news articles and things like that. Different browsers get different ads, right? What I'm worried about is at what point do different browsers get different front pages, different articles with different language, different headlines, different people telling us a story. But we're at a point where we don't know that that's fully happening to the extent that we think it's not happening. So the zeitgeist actually further drives us in to these narratives. That to me is that's where I almost do like just centralized, like this is what's on at 9 o'clock.
Right.
We're all watching it. Right? Like that's that thing, that choose your own adventure thing gets really scary when we realize that the adventure is interacted. The way we engage with the choose your own adventure is through these manufactured mechanisms, manufactured consent.
And imagine if you have, and I don't know if you were brushing this a little bit or referring to it, but imagine if you take into account the Bing integration. I don't know how many people use that of ChatGPT, but imagine if something like that becomes so powerful that it actually scales, and maybe it's even integrated. Maybe Google just gives up and they just integrate it in Google or whatever. But it becomes
ChatGPT.
Yeah, or like the GPT search or anything like that.
They already have it. I have it. You can sign up.
Really?
Yeah, it's called Google
I didn't
Labs.
even know.
It's so called funny. Google Labs. You can sign up and it will give you generated answers.
Oh wow! But
it's good. You can get code out of it too, and it's better than Copilot.
Really? Okay.
Well, so I only search for kind of basic implementations of things. Yeah. Otherwise, I write it, right?
But imagine if you have this, like, so many people are in on this generated AI content. So, like, what? Oh, but you're talking about Bard. I thought you were talking.
That's what's happening underneath the hood. But what I mean to say is, you. So, like, if I could share my screen, but I'm not going to. What you'll see when I go to my Google homepage, you look up. You usually have your little like window that you can drop down for things. Maybe a little icon. Well, now there's a new icon that I've signed up for. It's a scientific beaker, and basically now whenever I search, the top search is the generated response, and then the normal search results come up.
So I was sort of saying, if like Google and if Bard and GPT kind of merged, like if you kind of,
I misunderstood you. Okay.
Yeah, like so. Pretty much what I'm saying is you sort of have these AIs actually, if they get adopted at a massive level, which it doesn't even matter if people choose it because Google's already and Bing already adopted, and you can just kind of switch
Right.
it,
Yeah.
right? So these things get adopted, and then you have narratives being manufactured in these predictive answers.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. That's 100%.
Like I feel like that's the first entry point where it's like, because
already happening.
well, it's already happening. Look at Twitter. Like, I also only use like Twitter and YouTube now, and you can already see they've in this past week they've upped the little hints below tweets. I don't know if anyone's noticed that, where it's like, oh, correction, actually, like this tweet is wrong, and the scientific evidence is this Wikipedia article. You ever see that on Twitter?
Yeah, it's like kind of like the fact
Fact check.
thing. Yeah,
They've
I mean
upped that a ton this week.
Yeah, well, that's because I think they're getting prepared for the election, because what they did is they tested it out with Biden some months ago, where they literally were like, yeah, what Biden said is a lie. This isn't real. Check it out. And they real time fact checked him, and Biden's administration removed the tweet.
Fact checks. Whenever I see fact checks, I'm like if you go on like PolitiFact, like I can just like flip everything they said, and it's like true. Like they lie all the time.
Reed brings up a really good point. The reason they are investing in open source is you have to look at what Meta has done. The reason Meta has market dominance. So I don't know what anyone's familiar with, but I'm going to tell you 3 things that's going to blow your mind. All right. So web development. What's the main UI package everyone's using? React, right?
Yeah, React. Yeah.
ML. What's the main libraries everyone's using? PyTorch. Models. What's the biggest model everyone's bringing down now? Llama 2. Yeah. So these are all Facebook open source. Yes. Sure. They control the way UIs feel and look by creating a framework.
I'm a meta gimp.
Yeah, and PyTorch, you actually think about how models work in a very specific way now by thinking about class and with attributes, and then you have your forward functions underneath. You don't have to think about models that way. That's not how Scikit specifically does it if you actually read its code. So like there's these different things, and it comes right back down to controlling the narrative. Yeah. If you're using their tools, you're constantly building everything off of their back, then they are the giant that you're standing on. So they are leading the conversation.
Reed makes a good point where people are using them to their benefit. But so here's the thing though about that is whenever anything goes wrong, you have to refer to their channels of communication. You have to refer to their GitHubs. You have to refer to in NPM, those node modules you're getting. NPM is a business that hosts servers that's literally hosting their code. Yeah. So you're supporting another business that supports them. So you're doing business for them whenever you, which is, I'm not saying don't do it. Like I love React. Yeah. Oh, but real quick, he says, RC says, what would you start learning in tech to make 6 figures? I mean, you could learn any of the major languages, and if you got good at them, you would be able to make 6 figures. I do have a video I call the goated developer stack, which I released a couple of days. That's more for being an indie dev, so being more of an entrepreneur.
If you want to go into like a tech industry, I do think that being a very strong full stack engineer, but having data science chops is going to cut through, because right now
that's literally the video that
that's the way right now, because basically a lot of companies, actually I was just listening to my department head talk to our HR team about the type of people they're looking for. He said specifically, we want people who have good computer science chops, but aren't caught up in C++. Like they don't have like a religion about it. They want people who aren't inundated in computer science, but they also want people who have the statistical way of thinking about things, approaching like models, but like aren't so like precious about being the one who built it that they're like resistant to using open source. And that at the end of the day, they kind of want this like new type of generalist where I think the old school generalist was like, I can do front end, back end, I can build a REST API, I can do UI. And then there was like this generalist between like 2015 to 2020 that was like, yo, I'm really good at stats, but I can implement the ML as well. Well, now that the ML is pretty much automated in packages for general business purposes, they basically want someone who understands the ins and outs of data science, but spends a little bit more time implementing, but basically lives inside glue script languages because they don't want to give you enough control to actually underwrite their like infrastructure.
And by the way, just so you guys know, Matt's not just like some random guy. I'm not going to say your background, but he's a pretty like high level machine learning engineer.
Yeah.
So he knows what he's talking about here.
And I will just say this, I made the transition. I was like working in the music industry as a creative, chasing like my dreams. And then I basically realized that I can do that and also make money and do other cool stuff as well, and transitioned into data science and machine learning, and kind of went from like knowing very little to like kind of running a lot of stuff right now. That it really just came down to the key thing being useful within my company, and knowing that community and being honest and following through.
We should honestly, and maybe we could even have the next week be about this a little bit and maybe make some clips on it. We should have a whole stream on just like how to be useful. Like in the industry.
Going back to Rice really quick, what he just said, RCE. No, I mean SQL's part of data science for sure. Like databases. That's just part of like data. You just got to know data, and SQL, Mongo, GraphQLs, things like that. Vector databases might be more important a little bit down the road. Yeah. But when it comes to database administration and cloud, I think it's less important right now because a lot of companies don't own their infrastructure anymore, and they basically have AWS or Azure or Google Cloud subscriptions. So yeah, maybe learn cloud in the sense that you know how to navigate those server companies. Yeah. I happen to work for a company that prizes itself on its private network. So in that space, yes. If you work for a company that has its own private network and it's trying to do like a hybrid cloud, also like local private network scenario, then those skills will come in super handy. But those companies are few and far in between, but they will pay you a lot if you have those skill sets and bring it to those companies. But going into tech generally, you actually want to focus on business insights right now, which is data science and full stack, because that's the value. That's the bottom line.
And also, like, when you're training, think about the skills you're getting. Don't try to match job postings as much as, because a lot of that cloud computing technology, in order to gain expertise at it, you have to be in a organization, and to gain that high level of, because it's all about scale. In order to, and you're going to be asking questions about scale, or you're going to be asked questions about scale, which you should know how to address. Mm-hmm. But a lot of that, you can actually train a lot of the cloud server architecture stuff theoretically. Yeah. When it comes to like getting good at skill sets that you'll be tested on, I would say back to it's actually my indie dev GOAT stack is actually a little similar to this. Mm-hmm. You should be, I think personally, everyone should try to get good with Python and like NumPy and data frames, but get really good at Postgres or a SQL based database, and be good at managing your own SQL setups. Yep. And then in general, this is the indie dev thing. I think if you want to be independent and building your own stuff, you should have a full stack web dev like strong suit, so you can just like set up web apps whenever you want. Yeah. But when it comes to the data stuff, like you're probably going to be asked Python. I don't know if Matt, if you can push back on that, but
no, Python's the way. There's some communities that like are trying to say Julia is going to overtake, but Julia is going to stay in academia in my opinion, because it's not performant. And the way that you write it is very much like you're working in a MATLAB or like a Jupyter Notebook, where Jupyter Notebooks are great if anyone's familiar with those. Great for like, there's a lot of good reasons for them, but like if you're going to build a product or work on a team, Python, JavaScript are huge. Databases, absolutely agree. For the most part, the three types of databases that I use within my company are a SQL-like database. We have our own proprietary thing, but it's very much like SQL. And then we have non-relational databases in order to store objects. That's like a big deal for us. And then GraphQL is huge in our company because of just because of like especially on the infrastructure side, like GraphQL allows you to basically build your query format on the fly, because you're basically looking at a non-relational database where every object is just a variety of keys. And then with the GraphQL, you basically stitch the reply back by how you want keys to connect. So those are huge. And vector DBs are coming up strong for search. Like that.
I've been doing some streams on that. I don't know if you've caught those. I think vector DBs, we talk about them a lot. I think those are super important for the future.
Mm-hmm.
So one thing,
new languages will keep popping up, but I don't think a lot of them will stick. I think there'll be niche communities, but they'll be there. Like Rust, I'm very interested, but it's still far from competing with C++.
Yeah, that's one thing in terms of data industry. I don't think Rust is going to be big, but I think if you got big in Rust, you will definitely have employment. Because there's just so few systems engineers and so many people always need them. It's just that you won't be in like New York, probably.
You'll probably be building out something, but like if you're interested in like database administration or cloud infrastructure, things like that, Rust is a good thing to have under the belt as well, because you'll understand what a high performance system looks like. So you'll have that baseline, and you'll understand kind of in general, if you're trying to work in networking or like database things, understanding code closer to the metal, I think is going to be better for you, because you'll understand scale a lot better. But if you're trying to do like business insights, machine learning, things that deal with aggregating information out of data, then like some data science full stack scenario is the way in my eyes. Unless you're going down the game dev route, that's a completely different world than what I'm talking about. Like game dev and that type of stuff is just as valuable and just as lucrative. I just don't know as much about it.
What do you think if someone's getting into like from zero right now, because I talk about like a lot of things. I don't so much talk about, especially the pipeline to like software engineering and web dev and stuff like that. But in terms of the pipeline to like what you did to not have a PhD and to essentially self-train with a boot camp assisted to be a high level machine learning engineer, right now today, if someone was at zero, what advice would you give them?
What I would basically do is, if you want to go from zero to useful, like in a short period of time, I'm a strong believer in like the hands-on reverse engineer approach. Basically, like I would start with Python. The reason why I would start with Python specifically, I would start with typed Python. I would basically, because what I think people need to get is an intuition of computer science principles, because those principles are why languages are what they are. And you were kind of talking about this last night with JavaScript a little bit. I think JavaScript should be the second or third language you use, because it's so abstracted and it's 100%. So cockamamie how like the logic works, where if you've used Python, if you've flirted with C++ a little bit, if you've maybe looked at some Java, then look at JavaScript, it's going to make sense why they cut the corners the way they did to implement a faster web glue like language, which makes perfect sense. But if you want to like kind of go like, how could I go from zero to hero, learn Python as a backend, learn database stuff, like in the sense of like, how do you set up a SQL server and then build an API to call like Reddit and store that information in that database? Like, how would you do it? That's an important skill set, because a lot of companies actually just want you to build like fast like middleware, essentially. That's what your first job will most likely be like, unless you're trying to be an analyst of some sort, or as I see RC Ian here, if you're trying to be like a cybersecurity professional, that's a different game. You need to learn networking. You need to learn like you need to understand protocols more if you want to go the cybersecurity route, so that you can break into things and like that's how I kind of see it. But if you wanted to kind of go where the job market is where they're really trying to bring people in right now. I would start learning how to build apps with a Flask front end or a React front end. So anything that gets you touching JavaScript and Python, like go that route, like chase those things and try to create apps that are what I call intelligent apps or dashboard apps. Those are a little bit more important things that get you so if you have 0 projects and you want only 1 project to get you a job, if you could build a real-time streaming front end that's doing analytics on the stream and that dashboards in real time, then they would be like, cool, we got it.
I love that.
Because that forces you to build a database, forces you to think about like message queues and like Kafka and stuff like that, forces you to think about data visualization, forces you to think about how you want to aggregate, display that data, and then forces you to build a like intuitive UI. And if you can do all those things,
is business case. So it's like so used in the world. So another thing, with web dev needing to learn machine learning, it's not even as much, don't look at so much as like needing to learn machine learning, is that every engineer, in my opinion, should be gaining it's fairly intensive knowledge around data and statistics and modeling. And machine learning is downstream from that. So it's not even that machine learning is the thing you learn as much as you learn about data. And data viz is a part of that. And like just from Matplotlib to D3, like data viz is a huge part of data. And the cool thing about if you learn web dev and data is you can build like Matt's sort of saying is you can build like your front ends to all the data work that you do, and you can actually do something and show it in a portfolio sense or to a user super easy. And right now data is the game when it comes to sheer value, because we're in a bring Matt to more streams. This dude has enriching. No, Matt. It's so funny. Like I was like, I have to get Matt on the stream because like people need to know about Matt. Like like a lot and you have a very intuitive way of thinking. But I know it's hard. It's weird getting compliments. I get it, but it's like,
I appreciate it.
but yeah, I think like data is like so such an important discipline to have right now. But and also being able to build stuff like when you're with like building a portfolio right now, let's say they do actually have like 6 months to build a portfolio to get like a machine learning job. Do you think that's something they should even do? Or like if so, like what are some other projects you think would be a good idea?
Power BI is great for business analyst and data analytics. Tableau is another good one for that. I just saw that pop up. Those are great for data viz. That's a Microsoft product that basically consumes your data and allows you to drag and drop how you want it to be displayed. That's a super powerful tool. The only thing with using Tableau and Power BI is you're probably going to be more so in a role that is presentation oriented, business analyst, in the sense that you are maybe not building the pipelines to the data, but you're the consumer of the data and someone else in your company's built you the pipeline and you're basically controlling the aggregate and building the analytics, because the tools like Power BI and Tableau are really powerful in giving you an intuition of like how to match a table together or how to combine data points to derive some insight. But going to your question really quick, you said specifically if they're looking to get a machine learning role and they have 6 months to build a portfolio. Okay, so what I would do is there's 3 basic things that I would do right off the bat. One is implement a few algorithms from scratch. Go look at how to build a principal component analysis module so that you can have high dimensional data and bring it down to low dimensional data. Build a support vector machine from scratch. These are all things you can do in a day. There's tutorials all over the place. You just want to build working modules of it so that and maybe comment it pretty well and write a README that shows that you understand the math behind it. some degree. Yeah, readmes are huge. So that would be one thing. Show that you understand how to implement the algorithms. It doesn't mean that you need to be able to write the formal math out. That doesn't matter. You need to know the intuition, and you need to know how to implement that intuition. That's what they want to see there.
Right.
Then what you want to do is show that you can gather a data set. So maybe use a baseline data set at first, but eventually what you want to be able to do is scrape the web and build a data set. That is
what's
huge.
up. Look at my streams.
Unless there's only one other alternative to that. If you happen to have mechanical devices that have sensors that read out metrics and you can aggregate metrics from your mechanical device, that can be big too. This could also be if you ever track like Fitbit, or you use some type of app to track something of you, and you can pull down that data set. That's unique, and you can use that as well. Financial data is also good if you want to like analyze your own financial patterns, things like that. But if we're just making a portfolio here, it would be really impressive to be able to say, can I categorize a set of YouTube videos? What would I do? So, you want to pull down some of the metadata. This shows that you have some insight into, connecting and pulling things from the web. But also what you want to, so once you have this data set, right, without going into all the details of the YouTube thing, but let's say you have this data set, what you want to be able to do is show that you can train multiple models on that data set, and that you can basically compare the models. That's big. So like one of the things you want to do is you have a benchline, you have a data set, you want to create a benchmark model. So that's something that's like, just like, where do we start? What's the cold turkey? How's that? And then show that you can make decisions to those parameters that improve the model's performance. So, so first you want to show that you can implement the intuition by writing out like a PCA module, support vector machine, or whatever. Like these things sound crazy, but they're really not. Linear regression, logistic regression, can you do it? Then you want to show that you can start from a shitty model and make it a good model with custom data. That is huge if you can show that, because it shows that you understand the intuitions of model drift. It shows you understand the intuitions of how the data should affect the model, and that you can validate that hypothesis. That is big. And then the third one is what I already said: build some type of real-time analytic dashboard. If you want to do that in 6 months, you can knock out those first 2 projects in a week. Honestly, just go look at tutorials. Go look at O'Reilly.
Take notes, people. This is really good information.
Yeah, go to Kaggle. Go to Hugging Face. Here's a beautiful thing about Hugging Face. Hugging Face literally has to do a lot of this stuff to justify the model card in the first place. So go and look at what they did to justify why you should use that model, and then create your own little variation of that explanation somewhere.
Interesting. Wow, that's and so like what you're saying, if like someone presents you this portfolio, let's say you have to hire a junior for yourself in your job, like these are things that would impress you, essentially.
Yeah, exactly. And if they had no portfolio, because let's just say like they didn't, because to be honest, I'll say this, ever since I've been like hardcore full time over the past like 3 or 4 years, my GitHub contributions, my personal GitHub contributions have kind of waned, but my internal company GitHub contributions, crazy, right? So I know that if I were to leave this company and go to another company, what they would see is like 3 years of like kind of nothing, and then like a little explosion of activity on my GitHub. And they might say, what were you doing? And I'd be like, well, I signed an NDA. I can't talk about it. But so in that scenario, maybe you don't always have something to show portfolio wise. So if in that scenario, what I would do to interview someone is I would start asking them intuitions again, because I want those 3 same things. I want to know that they understand that if I'm talking about why would a support vector machine work in this non-linear 2-dimensional data? And I want them to tell me, because the relations can actually be parsed up in a higher dimensional space. So you use the support vector machine to project it into a higher dimensional space, so the calculations can happen there, and then it gets brought down to a low dimensional space. That's the point of the support vector machine. And I might say, okay, well, why is that different than principal component analysis? And if you can answer that, why is a singular value decomposition better than PCA? And if they can answer those questions, then I know they know the intuitions, and that's all that's important to me, because you can just pull down NumPy, scikit-learn, and implement the algorithm in like one line of code. I don't care about, do you know the symbolic math? Then I'm going to talk to them about a real scenario. I'm going to say, hey man, if you're running a music venue and you've got bands to take care of, you've got the hospitality bill, you've got ticket count, you've got sales you want to take care of. How would you use those features to predict the outcome of the show? What would be the intuition on that? And get them thinking through those data science questions. And then I would just basically ask them, how would you use, and I would hopefully, working at whatever company I'm, have a data dashboard tool. And I would say, derives, without you knowing anything about this, just look at these visuals and tell me, basically Rorschach test this for me. What do you see? And if they could say, well, there's a spike here and that spike's correlating with the spike here, maybe these two data, features have something in common. I'd say, okay, that's what I'm talking about. I just want to see some common sense about this.
So I really like that. And that's really good for anyone watching that's like currently in the process of trying to upgrade your tech career, become a better engineer, because I've seen this with senior engineers, people that are often in interviewing people, and they're the ones you really need to win over, because they get a lot of respect once people are vetting you at the table. It's less so. That's why people often don't care about nitty gritty of programming languages. They care about whether you can see the through line of the concepts. Like you said, okay, why would you need PCA over this other dimension reductionality method? It's like, and then if that, there's another case, and I think obviously I'm not a machine learning professional, so I wouldn't do well in that. But like,
no, you would. You and I have actually had these conversations. Just we didn't use like what.
I'm trying to be humble for once, Matt. Let me be humble.
I just want to tie it into what both RCA and Luigi said over here. Is like lingo is actually important.
It is.
In the terms of the industry, but lingo is not important in terms of the ideas. What I mean is if you and I have totally had these conversations without ever once saying PCA or SVM or LSTM, because we're just talking about it, right?
Right. And when people are vetting you for jobs, they're typically breaking down concepts that they have to deal with every single day and trying to get you to like think on their level on it. So the lingo will matter to some. Well, depending on the job, it'll matter a lot actually, because they don't want you to not. If you're mid-level to senior, they're not going to want you. They're going to want you to know lingo. But like seeing how you think in terms of problem solving is like the main thing they're vetting. They're trying to find good problem solvers, and like so that's really that's cool that you broke that down. Yeah. Like, is there anything like that you think next steps of like if someone wants to get specificity and become like a higher level machine learning engineer in the next 5 years or even like 2 years, like what they should focus on?
Yeah, I do actually have an answer to that, but I will say this to RCE. I mean, that would be like an awesome side hustle, the SQL data analyst. Cool. That's available actually. I think you have to go through humble methods initially. So like a Fiverr approach, some type of like helping people type approach you have to build that up to some degree. But like, I do think there is actually a world where there is like, in the same way in like maybe 2010, 2011, I made money off copywriting. Basically, this was not a main job. This was just a total side hustle. What I would do is I signed up for these like text agencies, and they would send a brief, and basically like hundreds of us would just send it in, and they'd have some algorithm that would like pick out the right one and whatever. Data analysis like that will be available soon. There will be companies who just want to outsource analytics very quickly. And if you want to like build that up, I would start building a GitHub that shows that you can write cool queries, mock up a database server, pull out tables, and show that analyst stuff like that. So that world's out there.
Interesting.
But for the ML thing, if you, let's say, I'll just tell you what I did. So what I did was I got I got good at implementing my intuition and understanding the general narrative of intuition in the algorithms, meaning like, how did we get from linear regression to a transformer? Like, what was the kind of story and motivation from like being able to just predict a number, like after a number, to full on like super fancy autocomplete, right?
Right.
Like, and I kind of understood it in a way that I could talk to it, but I wasn't able to, you know, formally write down what they all really meant. Like, what was the symbols that, you know, mathematically proved this thing. I wasn't quite there yet, but I could take a business problem and I could understand the category that would best solve the problem. So like, is this a classification problem? Is this a regression, like we need to predict something? Or is it like we just need to analyze and break apart segments of the data and cluster it? Like, I understood those basic algorithmic principles and then understood how to translate the business problem to using that thing.
Yeah.
And because we live in a world of packages, I was able to pull down a package that we know is stable and reliable, so that basically I was just like finessing and massaging the data because I knew the algorithm was like solid already. Then what I started doing was being like, okay, can I build without like using any package the same reliable structure? And then I was tasking myself with that. And you know, you start with like maybe NumPy, and so maybe you're relying on like operators, but you're still building out the whole algorithm. And then once you start doing that, you think, well, how can I optimize it? Start thinking like, okay, so like if their algorithm is the same thing as mine, but it happens literally seconds faster than mine, what's slow about like my thing? And that actually got me really involved with understanding like what's going on under the hood with Python,
Yeah.
what the garbage collectors are doing, like what problem that's solving from C++, and how it allows me to not have to think about memory allocation or anything like that. So I started to understand like what makes the algorithms work in an optimized way, because that's going to tell you about scale later on in life. Like, you're going to start to think, oh, complexity is really based on how is this optimized or not.
Also, just to interject real quick, with the talk about understanding memory really early on, this shit's making me 10x. It'll make you 20x. So like, this is actually a really important conversation, because at this point, people don't understand so much when they're trying to get a job, and they're like, how do I answer these questions about scale and all these things when I haven't been in industry? One of the best ways you can get competent at understanding the scale and getting good at being almost sounding like you're a senior engineer in a interview is by dealing with memory early on in the language. So understanding, like you just said, how the garbage collector works, if you're using a dynamic programming language or using Java, something like this, like study the Java garbage collector, because that's the most inventive one, or at least the one that sort of like brought about that concept into the mainstream. Understand, like, mess around with C. I think everyone should mess around with C, because you might not be using it professionally, but you should absolutely understand pointers 100%.
So to this and to read, you don't have to be able to write C. You have to understand why Python, like, what does Python solve?
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's like, you don't need to go and become like a master at C++. You just need to understand what C++, like, why is C++ object oriented, and what did that solve from the functional version of C? Like, what did that jump do? And you're going to learn it has to do with state and has to do with memory. And you're going to learn that. And then you're going to realize Python is an evolution of that, where it handles all the state and memory for you, so you can just script objects. And then, like, because that's basically what Python is. It's a scripting, it's an object scripting language where memory is like taken care of, and you don't have to worry about types if you don't want to, which gives you crazy freedom. It gives you crazy freedom. But I want to continue on with the ML thing really quick, because if you want to go from an applied ML engineer and you want to become more of like an ML scientist or an ML like researcher, where your main job is not to create applied pipelines that give you insights, but you have this job where you're doing a little bit more research and development. And so just so you guys have a little understanding, I spend about 2/4 of each year in R&D, and then I do the next 2/4 in basically the implementation of the R&D that I worked on. And that's kind of how my year works, essentially. Writing your own collectors. Yeah, that would be. Yeah, you should. You can actually do that. You can find a tutorial and follow it and do it pretty well.
Yeah, that's a CS. There's typically CS courses do stuff like that.
And like compilers and understanding how like all that's working.
Read the Dragon book.
Dragon book is huge, dude. That one's very good. And then data structures and algorithms, obviously, we all love.
Yeah.
But anyway, so if you want to get into more of like a place where you're proposing like business solutions and creating like novel implementations of algorithms, the next thing you do need to do is you actually do need to go and learn the math. That's the next step, is like you need to have a strong understanding of like why is like Bayesian called naive? Like, what does that mean when we say like naive Bayesian methods, and what type of probability structure is working there, and how do you implement that in symbolic language? Because what's going to happen when you're in the research level is you're actually not going to be coding that much. You're going to code to basically, in some non-optimized way, prove that your math works. And then once that works, you'll either be the person that optimizes it, or you'll hand it to a team who writes it in such a way that it's hyper optimized. But on the research level, if you want to be at that space, you really need to understand why matrix multiplication is the core of machine learning, like how vector representations and like basically like linear algebra and linear control theory, actually, how matrices and vectors represent state, and how mathematical operations are essentially manipulations of that state. If you can come to that conclusion and write out a symbolic form to basically express that idea, then people are going to give you a lot of credibility, because a lot of people can't do that. And if you can look at an algorithm and explain in detail exactly how the flow is occurring in the algorithm, and I'm talking about with like math symbols, if you can explain that and then also relate that to like how it looks in Python, and you can say, here's the language, here's the idea, here's the implementation. When you can very smoothly talk through all of that and confidently, then you're in R&D land for sure, and you're going to be given a lot of freedoms. But you don't need to do that if you don't want to. If you just want to get like a 6-figure gig and be like an applied machine learning engineer, totally doable. And you can do the first couple of things we said, and you don't have to give yourself the headache of attempting to be like a researcher. But that stuff will never hurt you. So if you want to, like, I always advocate, keep learning, keep taking it. Like, you are in a constant competition in this industry, and
with dudes like Matt. You're competing with dudes like, understand you're competing with dudes like Matt here.
Yeah, so if you want to beat me, you just have to like read as much or more than me. And I'm not saying I necessarily read a lot. It's how I retain the information and how I communicate it and implement it.
Right.
So if you can speak it and you can think it and you can implement it, then you have the power. But the only way to keep up with that is continuously reading basically white papers and GitHub repos. And also, don't believe the magic. If a group comes out of nowhere and is just like, yo, I just solved this cool thing, it's very cool, like blah, 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 this, that, you need to be able to know how to look at their data set and know if they tricked you somehow in that. Is there some duplication in that data set? Is there some bias in that data set that sways the statistics and things like that? And then how does that affect the modeling? Actually, you know what? I think that would be a really good way. Go to Kaggle competitions and look at the people who lost and see if you can understand why they lost and why the people who won.
Ooh,
what's the difference about the models and the data they use? How did they process the data differently? That would be maybe a good insight.
Kind of like a game theory approach.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, that's really intelligent. And also when it comes because this past year I've been like spewing like long texts at Matt as I've been learning machine learning, and partly the things that, because he sent me tons of valuable, because literally what he's saying is partly why I can do these. Like, I mean, I knew Python for like a decade and all that, but like part of the reason why I can do a lot of machine learning stuff is because of a lot of like Matt's help this past year. And I'm telling you, the resources around understanding dot product, understanding where cosine comes into play with vectors in a scalar space, understanding what vectors are. These things blew my mind. And also really look into the math around backpropagation.
Yeah,
If you're because that's the thing that actually
that is the learning.
Learning about gradient descent really is the thing that got it so I could from scratch write some models here. So that's that's me sort of like trying to translate like a good entry point and understand the math concepts. Why don't boot camps cover this level of detail? Yeah, I know, right?
They used to.
Where do you find these white papers? I literally, it's probably a better question for you, but I just like Google. I look at GitHub and I look at Hacker News like every day, and I'm just constantly Google searching. I'll find white papers looking at problems that I'm dealing with. Like I found this really interesting. I've been messing around with HTML language models recently, and I found this like DOM LLM white paper and like. But Matt, yeah, that's probably a better question for you.
Well, I mean, there's the main repository that you could go to, which is archive.org, but it's spelled a little differently. I'm waiting for the Dragon Book link to load, and I'm going to send that in because I see someone wants to know about it.
So the Dragon Book's just it's like the best book about learning about compilers.
Exactly, it breaks it down. I'm just going to put a link in here, but actually, if you want to you should put it in arg. It's like ariv.org. I think I'll confirm that in a second. But here's the Dragon Book for whoever is interested in that. That's coming in. That's the direct PDF. You should just be able to download it. I believe this is the one in English. Yeah, this is in English. So the other website that is like basically where all of these white papers live is archive.org, but I need to make sure I'm going to the right one. Nope.
Yeah, everything's on the site.
Yeah, but basically what happens is the repository is where everyone posts their paper to make it legitimate, and then they go and do their own marketing campaigns by wrapping it in a GitHub, putting it on LinkedIn, whatever they need to do to draw attention to it. But you can just look at archive.org and it will be there. And I believe this is it. Yeah, that's how you spell it. This has like everything, man, but it's not even just machine learning. Like archive.org.
Oh, you can't see the link?
Oh, really?
Which, RX.
Yeah.
IV. Yeah, I mean that's every single white paper I've seen has been on there.
Yeah, but it's not just machine learning. This is like all white papers. So you want to look at just looking at the top things on the front page. First, it's physics. All the white papers on astrophysics to like general relativity, quantum physics to high energy physics. Go into mathematics, go into computer science, quantitative biology, quantitative finance, statistics. So this is just a resource for like good documents being submitted by basically well-educated people who are solving some niche problem and they're writing a paper about it. I would say probably in the last 4 or 5 years, archive.org has blown up with machine learning papers. It feels like one like every 20 minutes. So don't feel overwhelmed. That's the biggest thing, though, going into the machine learning field is don't feel overwhelmed. Understand that at the core principle of the science, it's a very simple idea. And that the idea is that trial and error is brute force knowledge. And machine learning is basically you're brute forcing knowledge. You're literally trying something at like a million times faster, not a million times faster, but you're doing something a million times in the time it would take you to maybe think about doing it once. So, and it's basically distilling that through trial and error. So it literally, like machine learning is literally this. I'm the model. This is the data set. And I go, that's a cat. And there's a score that says, you're like 50 points off. I take that 50 points off and I go, all right, I'm going to adjust everything that made me think this was a cat by 50 points in a direction. And then I'm going to say, okay, now what is this? And I go, maybe it's a car. And then it goes, nope, now you're 70 points off. I'm like, shit, I went in the wrong direction. So let me go back and adjust everything by 70 points in another direction. And then I go, it's a phone. Because you got it right. And I go, okay, cool. That's the association. This is a phone. New thing. Is that a cat? No, you're 80 points off. Okay. And so it's just that's all you're doing it, but you're just doing it in a different.
Oh, dude, I don't think your links are showing up.
Oh,
hold on.
Really?
Let me just write. Let's see if mine arcsiv.org. Let's see if
that one popped up. I can see that.
Yeah,
but I can see it in this chat. Maybe it's not on YouTube. It's chat.
How do I just?
Whoa! It popped up.
Oh, nice! Look at that.
Right? How did you do that? Yeah. That's cool. Yeah. Go and highlight all those.
I actually don't think anyone can see that. Oh, they can see it on the stream. Look at that.
That's great. Yes, but, RCE. What the Not Hot Dog app is a great example of that. Silicon Valley, to be honest, while it is a joke of a show, like, I mean, it's literally a comedy show, they're not wrong. Like, what they talk about in that show is like pretty spot on, like what was happening from like 2008 to like 2019. Like, that's literally what was going on in the industry. So you're not wrong. Pay attention to the lingo as the seasons change too. But there's another thing, Data Science Handbook, great book. I believe that's a Manning publication, if I remember that one correctly. That is anything that's a Manning publication or an O'Reilly publication, solid material. So PACT is another one too. PAKT.
Oh yeah, dude. O'Reilly Python book, the reference book that was amazing. Like this big. Yeah. When I was like 14, I remember I was reading that like all day, and I remember I thought the way people made GUIs was with tkinter, and I was using tkinter. No one has ever used that for anything ever.
I know one guy who literally uses it at his he works for a chemistry lab. And he builds basically analytic dashboards for their chemistry stuff, but they're a 100% Python ecosystem. So they're not optimized.
That's funny.
But he builds tkinter dashboards for their chemical readouts.
It's this like standard library Python GUI that's just so bad.
So clunky. Actually thinking about that, even though you would probably benefit more from PyTorch nowadays as your go-to library, there is an O'Reilly book called Hands-On Learning TensorFlow and Scikit-learn. Priceless. The book will give you data sets. It'll give you code implementations. The great things about Manning, O'Reilly, and PACT is every book usually comes with a GitHub repo.
Okay, I think I found the Amazon.
Yeah, it has like a little salamander or something.
Yeah. So this is like a good book.
Oh yeah. That's like one of the early ways to get into things. Yeah. Machine learning, TensorFlow. That's it.
That's great.
But the key phrases, and I'll let you talk for a little bit. I feel like I've been going for a second. But
dude, this is your game.
This if you want to just learn something, this is how you should search for it. Hands-on. And then the thing, I'm not kidding.
So true.
Like, hands-on neural nets, hands-on implementation, PyTorch, hands-on large language model, hands-on data science, hands-on. The thing is, there might not literally be a book called hands-on, but everything that returns to that will be legit. It will point you in the direction of some type of textbook that focuses on implementation. And that's just the route you're going to want to go until you got it under your belt, and then you can look under the hood and dive deeper.
So what do you think about the Go, as Reed's saying here, the Go Postgres stack?
Mm-hmm. Okay, so also in learning solidarity for blockchain is worth it. I should focus on the web dev and AI nowadays. I mean, blockchain has a place. It's more niche, and you're gonna if you learn blockchain, you're going to kind of end up in the financial sector because that's where that
Yeah,
technology is going.
definitely.
That's a surveillance technology. So that's going into the financial. So if you want to work for banks, learn blockchain. I don't really believe in the crypto space. It is real. Like crypto is real. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah.
But it's just a really easily scammed. And I think the trajectory for crypto is that like the centralized banks will become the whales, and they will basically control monetary. Like we won't. Okay, so when the centralized banks own crypto, we won't need to fake a recession. They're literally just gonna convert it to USD, and we'll all lose a bunch of money for a little bit.
Yeah,
and then when they're happy
World
with
coin.
us, they'll pump us back up. But going to Go and Postgres.
Yeah.
Go is a great language. If you're dealing with networking, Go is, no pun intended, the way to go.
It is.
No doubt. Like, like Bill, if you want to do anything networking wise, like you should kind of have Go, because it is the most performant concurrency language. So you can handle all this type of messaging. And it's really simple. Go is actually a pretty straightforward language. It's not really that complicated. I would learn Python first, though, because Go takes the principles of Python and basically gives you the power of C++, which Python does too, but Go does it in a different way. But Postgres and Go, no problem with that. Like if you're already kind of learning that stuff, it's good. It's a strong thing to have. Python is just something that there's two types of Python users. There's like a Pythonista who's like kind of like Python all day, every day, fuck everything else. Stay away from those people. No good. You don't want to be around those people. You want to be around people who like kind of like Python second nature, babies can do it. Like you want those people who can be honest about what a scripting language is, but still write awesome programs with it. Those are the people you want to be around, because they're going to encourage you to learn Go, to learn Postgres on another level. But you just kind of like Python and JavaScript are kind of like entry to the club, I feel like. And then like once you have that under your belt, like you'll naturally figure out what languages will assist you in whatever types of projects you're working on. No, I don't think you should read Dragon Book in whole.
I would
say read sections.
Real quick.
Take it.
Yeah, with that and with the should your focus be on web dev or AI, I actually think those two questions are kind of in the same realm. Just go to where you're curious, because it may be that you just read the Dragon Book in a whole because you want to. Because really the people, like whether or not your focus is in Go or blockchain or web dev or AI, if you're really curious, you'll get 10x. The
curiosity is what makes you a good programmer, by the way.
Yeah, exactly. Because curiosity is the fundamental of problem solving. So it's like you can't solve any problem without curiosity, really. Or you can memorize. But that's only going to get you so far. But yeah, so like but I mean, you can. I say if you can read books like that to the entirety and get, that's a huge book, by the way. But yeah, I think and so what do you think about though, like if we don't just go the kind of hokey path of curiosity that I went, if there is a hard path of blockchain versus web dev versus AI, and you have to give the answer right now for somebody who like wants to have a fruitful career, what do you think?
I mean, we did kind of, I wouldn't go the blockchain, what we call Web3 route. I wouldn't do that. I don't think inventing coins and trying to build up like monetary currency policies, smart contracts, like, sniffing ether, whatever they're doing over there. Like I wouldn't do it, because I think it's a waste of time. I think if you're already like highly advanced engineer and you have like a VC who's trying to rip a bunch of people off, then go the crypto route. You'll be very valuable to that person. But to start in that world, like the stuff is so abstract already that I don't know. I just think the crypto thing is a really hard place to start. You're going to be like more worried about like fast proxies and tracing things, and I don't know, that's what it will be at the end of the day. What you should do is you need to understand that at core have to be a web dev. You have to understand how the internet works. You have to understand how to pull data from a website, how to automate a website. You don't necessarily need to know how to build the most efficient like UX, like client approved market data, like thing, but you need to understand the fundamentals of data science and the fundamentals of web dev. That's just what you need to do at this point. And then, well, if you can understand the fundamentals, and like I said, the types of projects that Jared and I have talked about, they will teach you all these things. Like building a real-time dashboard literally teaches you web dev and data science simultaneously. So if you have those fundamentals, once you get into a job, the job will kind of direct you a little bit. Like no one wants an engineer to come in and build everything for the company unless you're like working with a startup. But like if you're just kind of joining a team, for the most part, there will be roles and you will have something that you excel in, but you kind of need to know the landscape. So literally what I would do is, I've already kind of told you in that sense, is I would just focus on building some type of real-time dashboard, or if it's not real time, something that where the data is in a database and you can interact with the database.
Or you have some cron job.
Yeah, something like that. But the thing where it says what RCE is asking, is there a fundamentals of data science SQL world to learn first, is if you are really set on data science and you think like the data analytics, the analytics thing, and kind of like you're saying, like this kind of SQL analyst side of things, web dev isn't going to be as important. You can get away with you need to then know how to set up a SQL server. That's the first thing I would do. Like, how do you pull down a SQL server and run it from your terminal and then inject a query and inject some data, insert some data, and then pull the data out. You need to know how to do that. That's the first thing I'd figure out how to do. Like, just do that. And then once you know how to put data in a database, you know how to take data out of a database, then I would start doing the data science thing, which is just learn how to classify data. That's the first thing you want to do. And I would make it really simple, two-dimensional data. So like what I mean by this is, when I say two-dimensional data, I mean data with like literally two attributes about it. So let's see if you can classify who's likely to live and who's likely to die on the Titanic. And the only thing you can know is their gender and their age. Now, the answer is going to be, if you're a male and you're older, you're more likely to die than a younger female. That's just, and it kind of makes sense. It's like there's some intuition there. But that intuition will live inside the data, and the way that you classify that using so maybe you build a SQL database, you pull down the classic Titanic data set. If you explore data science, you'll realize there's these data sets. There's the Iris data set, there's the housing data set, there's the Titanic data set. Titanic is a great one to start with because it basically teaches you classification. And what you can do is you can pull that down, throw it into your SQL database, and then you can run some very, very simple classification on it using scikit-learn as a library. And you can do that. If you know nothing about coding, you could probably read enough to within 2 weeks have that project done.
Yeah. So it's building a SQL server and tables.
Yeah, exactly. The server essentially is just a process that's running. The building the tables, putting data in the table and taking data out of the table and joining tables. That's another way to think about tables real quick, just to help us conceptualize them. Just think of it as a spreadsheet at the end of the day.
Yeah.
It's just a spreadsheet that doesn't have an Excel UI. It's just a spreadsheet that lives hidden in your computer and you can't really visualize it that well. And your only way of interacting it is that query language. And then it returns to you the data points that you've queried from it.
Yeah. Nice. This is the real 10x shit. This is, I think, do you mind if I clip some of this and cause I want to
do whatever you want, man.
Put some of this into a machine learning, intro guide for people. Cause I think this is super helpful.
Yeah, 100%. Dude, if people are finding this useful, then use it. Absolutely.
Yeah. Cause cause I haven't actually seen anyone break it down like this. Cause I don't think there's a lot of people who went down your path, that many that went as far as you down your path.
Yeah.
So I think this is really good.
That's happy to hear, because I do feel like what I saw was in the world that I went through, there was definitely a wave of people who kind of moved around the same time as me. a lot of them, once they got jobs, they literally stopped teaching themselves. I was interacting with someone.
It's most people.
Yeah, it was kind of crazy. It's like, dude, the job, by the way, I just want to say the job is not the goal. The work is the goal. Like you want to do 100%, the work. Yeah. So like job's just a means to doing the work. And if you find a job that values the work, then you'll get paid well for it. And that's what you want to do. So, and the only way to maintain the work is to continuously learn. So
Zero to Hero for ML. That might be the title of the video. I'll just do like Matthew Finch's Zero to Hero for ML or something. Because this last like hour ever we did has been really, really good. So like, yeah, that's the thing. The thing you're saying about the work, it's like that's just it. I even tweeted about this earlier today where it was like all me and my friends getting good at like all these different technologies through the years. Like you have to understand when you're going to get a job, you're getting you see it as like a checklist. Not everyone, but a lot of people see it as like, oh, I gotta just learn that NumPy, I gotta just learn this. It's like there's people out there that just learn this stuff because they liked the work and they liked building stuff. And seeing that, like that's been my world. And seeing people ask me questions about like through all the mentoring and stuff is like they're like doing the checklist, and I'm like, it's going to be real tough if you don't like the work, because a lot of that checklist in that job description is just these are natural things that you have to learn to get to the end point you want to get to when you're doing the work. So if you fall in love with the work, like that's the thing that gets you 10x. That gets you 50x. 50x. We're just escalating.
I like this phrase. This is what I and I use this across the board in my life. This isn't just with coding practices. I mean, I do this with literally everything. It's a really, really simple thing. You don't have to do anything. You get to do all these things in your life.
Yeah.
So when I see a list of things that I have to learn, I'm like, dude, I get to learn all that shit. Hell yeah, dude. I'm going to go learn that. And then I get to implement it. I get to use it. I get to be one of these people. I used to think about like, going back to my life in music. I used to be, when I was younger, before I started, so real quick, back in college. So the funny thing, just so everyone knows, my degree from college is in composition and jazz bass performance. Just so
you're Grammy nominated, right?
Yeah, I am Grammy nominated.
Yeah, no, he's legit Grammy nominated.
Yeah, this is not a joke. Like I know what I'm doing in that world. But I really found, way more interest and love in data science and ML. I mean, I'm a musician for sure. But anyways, what I'm getting at is, in college, before I started throwing shows and started like booking bands and doing all this stuff, I didn't like understand like how bands were performing. I almost thought it was like they woke up and somehow like a venue was like, we know you're really good, come on in here. No, what actually happens is they build that opportunity for themselves. They go through a lot of hard work of emailing people, negotiating things, and then it all leads to what they really wanted to do the whole time, which was they wanted to rock out. If you want to get paid and that's what you want, I don't know if coding is the route. You know what I mean? Like, if your main goal is like, I just want 6 figures, I don't think coding's the route, because you're going to burn out really quick and you're going to feel like you're wasting your time. You're not going to know what's going on. But if you just want to solve problems and build things like in like kind of an intense way.
Oh, did the stream get laggy? I think it may have got laggy.
Okay. I might just.
That's right. You can finish.
Yeah. No, but that's like but basically it's like you have to want the end goal of using these principles to solve your problems, because and to be honest, it's a snowball effect. Once you solve one problem with some coding, you're going to realize the potential. Like even just like a simple, like if you can learn how to automate your mouse on your screen, like that's like, I like that. That was a fun project for me early on. Learning how to like move the mouse on the pixels and shit like that. Once you learn how to do that, that's simple enough. That just gives you this sense of like, wait, I can tell this device to do things, and it will do it in a very precise way. Yeah. And there's a beautiful power to that. And if you start realizing the multitude of problems that you can solve, and I'm going to bring it around, then you'll realize that you control society
Oh,
at such a scale, you can only do
brought
it
it
with
back.
technology.
Close the loop. Right when we get to, we're about the 3-hour mark. So that's
This episode,
nice.
I think we're there.
Nice, awesome. Any like thing you want to push or anything in the end, or anything you want to? I don't know.
I mean, ultimately,
Follow you on GitHub.
Don't follow me on GitHub. I mean, you can if you want. It's fine. I have some code up there. You'll probably like it. But at the end of the day, if there's anything I want to push, if there's anything I want to advertise, and this might be cheesy, but like I'm being very serious, is like push yourself. Like fuck whatever anyone else has to say. Like most of the time, honestly, like most people aren't telling you things because they want to help you. Most people don't give you free information. They give you manufactured directions to believe in things. But I promise you right now, I genuinely just want people to succeed. I said it earlier, like empowerment is the real power in life. I've gotten so much further by helping people that honestly, that's the only thing I ever want to advertise to anyone is that like, go help yourself. Like that is it's gonna be great. And if I can help you, hit me up. And I'll advertise that services. You can find me on LinkedIn. My name is my name. You'll find me.
You want me to? I can post it in the description.
Okay. Post in the description. I will respond to anyone who has questions about this type of stuff. If you ask me things that's not related to this, I may ignore you. I may talk to you. It's really up in the air. But if you have like industry questions, like I want to see people succeed. I want people to do things. So I'll help in any way possible on that front. Yeah,
you guys should definitely take that up. It's very knowledgeable, man. I think we'll do this next week too.
Oh yeah, I think.
Oh, cool.
And this is a thing.
Yeah, we'll just do this every Wednesday and come in with questions, and we'll be talking about something crazy, conspiratorial or whatever.
Yeah.
But for now, like, subscribe, donate, do what you got to do, and share to your coder friends. Get 10x. We'll see us next week. Tomorrow I'm going to keep on streaming the tiny web dev LLM I was streaming yesterday. I'm going to try to fine tune it with QLoRa this time and with Bits and Byte. And I actually scraped like 86 sites with the compressed thing, and it's like it's a little much. So I'm going to have to figure out how to condense that. We'll deal with that tomorrow. We'll build that tomorrow. All right. See you guys. Thanks, Reed. Thanks, Gun.
Oh, and RCE, 100% correct. If you start from a DevOps perspective, security is going to be your game, 100%.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Cool.
All right. Cool. I'm gonna end the stream.